All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to the Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late here, but thanks so much for stopping by and joining in. So like all the other usual live streams are going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get that priority answering. If you'd also like that, there's always the join buttons all over the description and the video page here to join in. But I see we have a bunch of people already joined in. Sorry, again, I'm a few minutes late here, so even more comments than usual. Really appreciate everyone for standing by here. And Wheatman, thank you so much for being a member for 36 months. You crossed the 3-year mark. Thank you so much. Hope you like the new badge. He says, good evening, Matt, and all the car enthusiasts. Thanks so much, Wheatman, being one of the first to become a member back when that was available, and to be supporting for 3 years now. I really appreciate it. It really means a lot. So thank you so much. Hope you're still enjoying the membership perks. And like always, if anyone ever has any additional ideas, that's something I'm continuing to try and work on doing more and more of, doing more one takes, more behind the scenes stuff, all that. And it's something I'm going to really focus on doing for sure this year. And hopefully like the couple of little sneak peeks, with the schedules and the picture of the fun car that I will be posting a review of tomorrow, and talking all about that here next week. But so let me see here. Harsha, thanks so much for stopping by. Brian, Grand, Admiral Thron, Cars, Charming, Anthony, Wheatman, again, of course, Kyle, Theodore, Shane, B. Mitchell, Small Cookie, Raphael, Vishal, Danny, Stratus Edge, Wet Shaves, Luke, Trucking Car Guy, Decepticon, and yeah, thanks so much everyone for stopping by. So get right into the questions here. Harsha says, with the new CEO, do you think Nissan will go to its sporty roots? During the 2000s, Infiniti was known as the Japanese BMW. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, kind of like I said in the weekly update. Obviously, this guy's a car guy. He wants to bring back the Sylvia. He has said that, very directly. So I think, if the money allows, absolutely, we will see, I'm sure, a bunch of stuff. And I think, most car companies that I'm at least familiar with have people within the company that are car people, and executives pretty high up that are car people. Now, I will say that obviously some higher executives are more passionate about pushing stuff through than others, like Akio Toyoda, who, who's literally like lives at the racetrack. He's the reason why we have the awesome stuff with Toyota that we have. But then also like Toyota's got the money to burn. So you have the perfect combination of, the executive that wants to do that combined with the money to actually do it, and also the money to burn, so that, if it's stuff that isn't a great investment, it doesn't matter because the boss wants it and we have the money to, to spend. So, with Nissan, they don't have the money to spend right now. So that's why, and I've, heard this from other executives and even other CEOs that say, sure, we'd love to do all this stuff, but can we justify it? And a lot of the times, the accountants hold them back, because obviously you can't bankrupt the company just making your wish list of cars, so there's a balance there. So I personally am not expecting anything for a while. I think until Nissan is, back in a rebound, the only thing I think that could possibly fast track sporty Nissans is if they do the merger with Honda. Because, for example, Sylvia, if they wanted to do Sylvia and they wanted to do it, as an affordable car to slot under Z, if Honda was willing to do some type of sports car, like an S2000 successor that actually stays at like a $30,000 price point, it doesn't push up market like we would expect an S2000 to do. But if they decide to actually keep a cheap S2000 around, I could see, kind of the same arrangement you see with, other companies with sports cars sometimes, where you have, like we just saw this with Supra and with Z4, maybe Honda gets the convertible version with S2000, then the coupe version of that could be Sylvia. But would Honda want to, do that? Because obviously Honda's going to want to have VTEC, and Nissan maybe would go along with that, to power the vehicle. But then it just gets kind of complicated. But that's really the only thing I could see maybe the new Nissan executive pitching. Okay, well, let's first off hook up with Honda. And then, I know people in Honda want to do a new S2000. So if they can come together and kind of do that as maybe like a halo of their new marriage kind of thing. And, this is what we can do, and kind of a flexing of engineering might of the new two companies combined, to come out, in the next 5 years or something like that. But even that, if they started work on it today, especially the way the Japanese develop cars, it's very much, a lot of R&D work, and it's a slower process because they really want to perfect everything. I don't see anything anytime super soon, but I think that hopefully someday Nissan will get back to that. And the good news is, if things go well with this CEO, and if he, really does help the company to rebound, then I think that, he's got enough age left in him from an executive standpoint, that he could really kind of do what Akio Toyoda has done at Toyota, of really sculpting from the ground up. Think of Toyota in 2005, something like that. They had some fun stuff, kind of like, Nissan still has some fun stuff now, but, really making into this giant brand, again, money allowing, which is the real big, deciding factor. But anyway, yeah, hope for all the best, but I wouldn't expect anything super soon. I see Brian and Grant say good evening, and Grant says, sadly, no new car spots this week. I was still recovering from my illness. Thankfully, I'm feeling much better now. Well, that's good. Happy to hear you're doing better. And Carr says, hi, everyone. My spot of the week was a red first-gen Nissan Pathfinder. Pretty timely with all the recent Nissan news. Nice. Yeah, I haven't seen a first-gen Pathfinder in forever. That's really cool. I actually, I grew up, my neighbor across the street had a Pathfinder. It was like, must have been the first model year, because this was like early 90s, and the thing was already like on flat tires and like rusty and just like rotting in their backyard. I spent a lot of time pretending to drive beat up old Pathfinder as a very little kid. But yeah, that's cool. Great spot. I'd never see those on the road. The cars also says wild weather here in Sutherland, Oregon lately. It was in the mid 60s last Sunday, but today it was in the mid 30s with flooding, rain, and snow. Wow, that's crazy. We had a bunch of rain this afternoon. It was like, I think, over a half an inch of rain. I mean, it was coming down like hard. It was pretty impressive. Thankfully, I don't think there was too much flooding, but it was pretty wild. It was one of the heavier rainstorms I've seen in a while. I see Charming says help. I hope you're able to get the help you need. And hope you're doing well, Charming. And Random Bod with Milwaukee Buck, thanks so much for the first super chat of the night. He says, I sent you a nice little clip of the front end of my 2019 Ram Limited. The inspiration came from seeing newer vehicles with this feature. Nice. I'll have to check that out when I'm done on the live here. I'm not very good at multitasking while live. I always have to devote my full attention, but I will definitely check it out after the stream. And thanks so much for sharing that, and hope your Ram's treating you well. And thanks again for the super chat. And let me see. So Anthony says he spotted a first gen RX-7 today. That's awesome. And I can't believe it's been 3 years. I know time has flown for the membership thing. It still feels pretty new and fresh to me. And but again, so thankful for all the support all these years. And Kyle, another 3-year member as well, who crossed that mark here this week. Thanks so much for stopping by, Kyle. Hope you're doing well. And let me see. Theodore's asking if there's any truth about a 4-door V8 Mustang. Should it have come out when Dodge had the V8 Charger? Well, hindsight's 2020. I think, Ford would have liked to have something back then. But I've been hearing a lot of rumors. I mean, I haven't seen a single test mule or any kind of hacked up weird thing that could, be a development prototype for something like that. Maybe they've just done a very good job of hiding it. Maybe they run it in the middle of the night and, no one ever spotted it, yet or something. I don't know. But usually, that's the thing. It's very rare that a car is a complete surprise. I think the last time we had a real, true, complete out of left field surprise that I can remember was Ford GT when that came out, because that was literally like developed in like a basement bunker that, like, I don't know, 10 people knew about. And then whenever they did any kind of testing, I don't think they even did any testing before they revealed it, as far as like on track testing. But that was like a true, like, no one expected that car. Like nobody. Like I was even talking to people within Ford, and they were like, I had no clue this thing existed. I had no clue this place. Like it was like, Area 51 within Ford kind of thing. And so, so I'm saying all this to say that, if it hasn't been spied yet, and we don't have, a hacked up, Explorer or some type of weird stretched Mustang running around, something like that, then to me, that tells me they're probably not at that phase yet. Maybe they've approved the project, maybe, you know, they're still clay modeling it and stuff like that. But, you know, I don't know if any engineering work has started, if we have seen zero. At least I've seen zero. Maybe you guys have seen spy shots. I haven't come across any myself. So yeah, we will see, but that's the only thing. I mean, because it sounds like there's some credible rumors and reports that make me want to believe it is happening, but I just usually you always see spy shots of stuff, especially stuff in America. You know, you're gonna see that, and just don't see it. So I don't know. But Shane says, "Good evening, everyone. My car spot of the week was a Chevy SS that wasn't swapped with Holden badges. That is pretty rare. Most of them do that swap, and I don't blame them. It makes it feel a little more exotic, probably." Versus just the regular Chevy bow tie that makes everyone think you have a Malibu. But B. Mitchell says, greetings all. Not much surfacing yet in the MSP area for neat fair weather cars, but the motorcycle contingent is making a show of force, but they may be disgruntled snowmobilers. Nice, that's funny. So I guess the snowmobiling season got cut a little short, maybe where you're at, but that's funny. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of motorcycles too, and thankfully some cool cars as well. I saw, what did I see this week? I saw a couple quirky, like older, like 90s, 80s stuff, but I can't remember what it was. And there was one or two other newer things I saw, but it was a few days ago, so I've already forgotten. But if it comes to me, I'll let you guys know. I should start writing them down. But let me see. Raphael says hi, and Vishal says, "What's up, Matt? My spot this week was a red Ferrari 430 Spider. Yes, the top was down. Nice. That's awesome. Always good to see people actually using their convertibles. That's something that, especially Mustang convertible owners in Pittsburgh, are so guilty of. Like, it's a beautiful, beautiful, like mid 70s day, like not too hot, not too cold, perfection, not a cloud in the sky. They're running around with the top up. I'm like, why did you get a convertible Mustang?" It always triggers me when I see it's a nice day and people have their top up. It drives me crazy. But yeah, there's Miata. A lot of Miata buyers do that too around here, and I'm like, why are you doing this? But anyway, that's great to see the top down. Danny says, hello, my interesting / very rare spot this week was an Isuzu Via Cross. Wow, never thought I'd see one in real life. That is rare. Yeah, it's been years since I've seen one of those too. That's a very nice spot. Strata says, hey, all, I'm thinking of renting a cool ride on Turo since it's my birthday week. Well, happy early birthday. Sounds like a great idea. Hopefully you got some cool cars on Turo near you. Turo around me is not exciting. I think the most exciting stuff they have on there is like a Camaro or something. But hopefully there's some cool stuff where you're at, and sounds like a great way to celebrate your birthday. Hope you have a fun time. Let us know next week what you ended up getting. And Wet Shave says, here's Car's brother, Mikey, or Michael. Well, thanks for stopping by, Michael, and really appreciate both of you watching. And Luke says, I get my Maverick Friday the 28th. My brother's on leave until the 4th or the 24th due to my 4-month-old niece having surgery due to an eye issue. Well, that's rough. Well, I hope that it goes well for her. I can't imagine. I mean, my daughter's going to be almost 4 here, and I couldn't imagine having to put her through a surgery. So hopefully it's a very mild one, and hope she comes out okay. But sorry to hear that, and hopefully everything goes smoothly with your Maverick delivery here in a couple of weeks. But yeah, fingers crossed for her. And Danny says, happy to report I turned 17 this Tuesday. Here's a car that was made in March of 2008, Chevy Equinox Sport all-wheel drive. Well, happy early birthday to you as well. I guess it's a popular birthday week. Yeah, that's awesome. And I hope you have a great one, Danny. And yeah, hope you do something fun. And Truck and Car Guy saying hello from Arizona. Decepticons saying yo, yo, yo. And let me see. Raphael says, I'm just a little short of 3 years. I'll get there. I appreciate that, Raphael. Thanks so much. And Truck and Car Guy says, interesting spots. Just yesterday was an R34 Skyline and an imported Toyota Hi-C minivan. Nice. I don't know if I said that properly, but wow, you saw an R34. I think, there's one that's been around the Pittsburgh area for years that I don't know how they brought it over legally, but or illegally, but yeah, I haven't seen any other legal R34s around here, I don't think. Yeah, the last time I saw an R34 was at SEMA like 2 or 3 years ago, but man, very, very nice. Michelle says, looks like ADX reviews came out this week. Do you think Acura would add the hybrid option to differentiate even more from the HRV? Also, any news on RDX redesign? Haven't heard anything about RDX redesign. As far as ADX, I mean, the hybrid's got to be coming soon. It's kind of weird that all the Acuras are lagging so bad with the hybrid. I know Acura's original plan was just go straight from gas to EV, and they weren't going to do the bridging that they're doing with Honda. But clearly Honda's also jumping straight into the EVs in many cases with these new Zero Series things. So I don't know, because literally Integra is a straight bolt on. Same thing with the ADX, I'm sure. And yeah, I mean, they could even probably justify a version of RDX with the CRV powertrain. It would be less power, but you tell people you're going to get, what is it, 40 mpg or something. I'm sure they're probably saving that for the next generation, because it's got to be, a year or two away at this point. But I've not heard anything about that. Haven't seen anything spied for RDX. But ADX absolutely it's got to have the hybrid at some point, as will HRV. I don't think there's going to be kind of a differentiator, because it doesn't seem like they're very interested in much differentiation as it is. I mean, I guess maybe, with the ADX having, the turbo versus HRV having non-turbo, but I think with how Honda wants to hybridize everything and they're pushing pretty hard for that, I think that's going to be a case where they're just going to drop the premium spin and just give them both the same hybrid powertrain, basically. I think in Accord, does it do a few more horsepower than it does in Civic, if I remember correctly, or a few more pound-feet of torque or something? They could do something like that too, and put the top version with a handful more horsepower or something like that. But I think that hybridizing all the Acuras makes a lot of sense. MDX probably won't get it, because again, that's more of that heavier duty kind of platform we see with Pilot and all that. But I think everything within Honda and Acura will get a hybrid version in the next 5 years, if I were to guess. It just, again, seems to make too much sense, especially with how everyone wants hybrids right now. I think, yeah, it's just something they're going to have to do. And B. Mitchell says, just remember, Jim Farley is also a car guy, and he's done more to F up cars at Ford than anyone. Good point. I'd argue that, Jim Farley has also done some cool stuff. I mean, he got off to a rough start because he's supposedly the reason why Mach-E has a Mustang badge on it. But I think that he has, done some cool stuff. I mean, look at Mustang GTD, look at, all the other performance vehicles, Dark Horse and stuff. He's keeping that stuff going. So, I think there's obviously it's not all good news with Jim Farley, but I think that obviously he is a racer. He does actually, race cars. I don't know what he's done in Europe, and I don't know if he's just out of touch with, Europe, or if I think they just bet exactly the wrong way there, which is rare for Ford to really, colossally screw up. But I think that in Europe, that's what they've done. And I don't know, it is strange. The one thing I'd love to ask Jim Farley is, clearly Fiesta and Mondeo going away has hurt them, and people are already upset about how Focus is ending production towards the end of this year. What's stopping them from keeping Focus around? I think we're far enough out that I don't think suppliers, they're still producing. So I think you could tell them to continue to produce and keep that supply chain rolling, because it hasn't stopped, and it's not stopping, I think, till the end of this year. So, you see, okay, crap, we screwed up with Fiesta and Mondeo. Maybe it's too late there, whatever. But Focus, there's still time to save Focus there. And so I don't know why, I mean, Ford often does this where they can't admit when they're wrong, but I feel like, common sense should tell them, at least we have Focus. Let's just, keep that going, put all our chips in there, and figure out the rest. But at least you have that still, and you have people that want that segment, that you have all the parts still in play and in motion for that. Why not reverse course on Focus before it's too late? But I don't know. I mean, obviously here in the States, I think in the States they're fine. They know that people just want trucks and SUVs for the most part. I wish they could justify the Fiesta and the Focus, and it's just we're in this arms race of vehicles right now where everyone's migrating still into bigger and bigger vehicles for the most part, and everyone else needs to have bigger and bigger vehicles to feel safe among all the Cybertrucks of the world and the Hummer EVs of the world, and all these gigantic vehicles, even just the zillions of F-150s that keep getting sold every year. Like I've been saying in past live streams, it's a little hard to feel safe in a Miata, at least me being my paranoid self, even a brand new Miata, I'm like, I'm in a small car. The Fiat isn't much better. Obviously, I don't drive that car a ton, so that's kind of why I, kind of made my peace with its small size and the fact that it's still heavy-ish. It's just the weight of a Honda Civic, even though it's small. And so I figure I got at least the same kind of chances as a Civic does, and that's reasonably safe vehicle in my mind. So, but with Miata, you have less weight, 500 pounds less than the Fiat, for example. You're much lower, which also can hurt you. And so, yeah, it's just, so I don't blame Jim Farley is what my roundabout way of, getting to the point here. I don't blame Jim Farley for the moves he's made in the States necessarily. I think they still could have kept the Fusion around. I don't think that would have been bad to keep, but I understand Fiesta and Focus going away myself. But in Europe, like, come on, like, I don't know what they're doing there. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, good counterpoint there, B. Mitchell, for sure. And Jordan, thank you for a super chat. He says, our 2025 Maverick has a spin dial. Our 2015 Fusion has a grip shifter. How has tech advanced to no longer need a physical shifter? It's a shift by wire. It's literally just another little controller like any other PlayStation controller. And so, you never really needed that physical connection once you got to the point where a transmission could have that actuation done electronically. But I mean, I think even a lot of vehicles that have actual shifter, still it's an electronic thing, underneath it all there. So we still have the same spin dial in our Mach-E as well. And I like that spin dial. It's nice and easy to be quick with, in my opinion. I know some people didn't like it, but I think it's great. And thanks, Jordan, for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Let me see. Harsha says, I could see Nissan following Mazda and have sporty feeling cars throughout their lineup. That would be great. Yeah, I mean, even, just a little bit. Honestly, like again, if I'm going to be an armchair product planner here, there are some low-hanging fruit with Nissan. New gen Sentra looks like it's coming here in about a year. We just saw that spied. What's stopping them from doing a Nismo version of that? You can still pop in, the VC turbo 2-liter motor. Honestly, even the 1.5 that's currently in the Rogue, I just reviewed in the Rogue Platinum. I mean, that's like 221 horsepower. It's like 228 pound-feet of torque, if I remember correctly. That'd be a huge upgrade from Sentra's currently, like, what do they have? Like 170 horsepower, maybe 160 something. That'd be great. It's 1.5 3-cylinder turbo, but you put that in there, even if you have to saddle it with a CVT. At least we finally have a faster Sentra for the first time in, I don't know, 15 or 20 years that it actually got a power bump. That'd be great. Hooking up to a manual is probably a tall order, but that'd be cool too. Or even just, some Frankenstein thing. Like, they used to have the Frontier with the manual. I don't believe they do anymore. But surely there's that manual somewhere in the parts bin, tool that back up again, hook it up to the V6, put it in the Frontier, and then stuff that under the hood of the Sentra if it fits. I don't know if it does. Do a V6 power. I mean, I don't know. These things are probably completely unrealistic, but there's, at least with Sentra, do a Nismo version. That market is ripe for that. People love Civic SIs. People love, all the other sporty stuff in that segment. Jetta GLI, GTI is the only version of that car that Volkswagen can justify keeping around. So for small cars, I think the performance thing is not to be overlooked and can do real good volumes. And so I think Nismo Sentra is an easy pick. And I think doing, a punchier version of Frontier, Nismo Frontier. Also, there's like Nismo Patrol over in like the UAE and stuff. Like in the Middle East, they could totally, bring over the Nismo version of Armada just for kicks. I mean, Escalade V sells. Why not do a Nismo Armada? All these things where it wouldn't really hurt them to do, and it's all profit. Especially again if there's stuff like this Middle Eastern stuff they can bring over that's already had the R&D done. There are some things where they could make it sportier with very little investment, I think. So we'll see, what they end up doing. But yeah, it could be fun to see just more Nismo. I mean, every single car company that has a performance arm usually exploits it, pretty well, especially the luxury brand. So I think Nismo, all the things, is kind of low-hanging fruit. Even if it's a half-hearted effort, it'd be something. And, even an appearance package, if you really want to do a cash grab, slap Nismo badges on stuff and just throw body kits on them. I think even that has some appeal for some people, but we'll see. And Chad says, "How do you feel about the electric vehicles? It seems like they don't have it figured out." I'm not sure which, if you're talking about anyone in specific, in particular, but I think EVs are great. Obviously, I've talked about that a lot on my channel. We have two EVs now, personally, that we own. It's not for everybody. If you're an apartment dweller, if you just can't, if you're a street parker, you just can't, or you don't even have a way to charge in your driveway. If you don't have a power outlet in your driveway, or in your garage or something, then it doesn't make sense. If you can't charge at home or at work every day, then I wouldn't recommend getting an EV. Some people do it, and more power to them. I respect them for, sticking it out at the fast charger once a week or whatever they do. But some people, I know there's one person even on the live here that said that, like, they just go grocery shopping in a place with a fast charger, and they plug it in, they do their grocery shopping, they come back out to, a mostly full battery or whatever, and they do that once a week, and they have a very rigid routine. They have X amount of miles they always drive, not too many surprises there. And it fits, so it just comes down to your personal lifestyle and what you're willing to deal with. And I think they're completely manageable. Same thing, road trips, very easy to manage. If you're a planner, you just plan your stops instead of stopping on a whim whenever you feel like it. Every time I'm on a road trip in REVs or any other press car EVs, it's like, okay, well, I know I'm probably going to have to pee at this point on the highway. So let's try and have the pee stop around, a fast charger, or, around a, breakfast stop, lunch stop. I mean, you take a half an hour to eat lunch most of the time, unless, again, you're doing the Nathan's hot dog eating challenge. Like, I mean, if you're not rushing and you're not cannonball running it, and you take your time, then I think you could totally have it not interfere. And I know with our road trip that we did in the Mach-E back in 2022, we drove it all the way to the Jersey Shore, and we did, I think, 3 charge stops. And with at that point, we had she was like, I think 1.5, our daughter. We had to get her out. We had to change her diaper. We were still breastfeeding, all that kind of stuff. And like, the car was ready to go before we were. And it was like telling me, like, go, 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 like, get off the charger. And I'm like, no, like, we still got to like finish up here. And so the car was, and it's not like our Mach-E charges fast. We have the small battery version. It charges, I think, 120 or 130 kilowatt peak charge rate. It was ready before we were. And we're actually going to plan on doing another road trip to the beach here this year. And I'll probably doing another vlog. It'll be kind of interesting to compare 3 years later. How did the charging infrastructure improve or worsen? How's the demand? Are there lines now? And all that. But I think that's going to be interesting. But I'm, again, not expecting any issues. You just plan it and you're good. If you're not a planner and you fly by the seat of your pants for everything in life, then I could see it being a problem. So again, it just comes down to personalities for sure. And Stratus Edge, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, Matt, one of our local event organizers showcased his new restored 64 Amphibicar he brought from California at Cars and Coffee. He plans to take it on the water. That's awesome. Those are so fun. I know, Jay Leno covered those a bunch, and I think even on Top Gear they cover that at some point. But very fun little car, and again, from that age of we can do anything, kind of mentality. It's like, let's do a car that goes on the water. That's really fun. And yeah, very cool car. I haven't seen one of those in a long time myself. Yeah, I think I saw one at the Peterson like a long time ago. It was probably the last time I saw him. That's a very cool spot. And thanks so much for the super chat, Stratus Edge. And Charlottetown Spot, thank you for a super chat as well from Canada. He says, will we ever see the market values of cars ever come down? Used car prices still seem way too high. I don't think they're going to go down ever, at least not for a while. I'm not going to get in the weeds here with the tariff discussion again, but I don't see used car demand going down at all. New cars are going to get very expensive, most likely, if things go through. And I think used cars are going to get a lot more expensive, actually. So if you are in the market for a car, I'd get it before April 2nd, because that's when supposedly all this stuff's kicking in, and supposedly he's serious and all that. So, yeah, and that goes for anybody. If anyone is even remotely thinking they need a new car or they want a new car, buy before April is my advice. Obviously, maybe I'll be wrong. I'd love to be wrong. Please let me be wrong. But that's kind of what I'm suggesting for everyone, because otherwise everything's going to get 25% more expensive or more. And that's all going to affect used car prices as well. And also be wary that when you are buying a car, make sure that you're buying slightly under your budget, because insurance rates are going to go up for everybody, because every part's going to get more expensive, and therefore it's going to get more expensive to fix stuff, and therefore your insurance for all of us will go up as a result of that. So make sure you budget in an increase in insurance rates, which will probably happen if, again, this all goes through as well. So just keep that in mind when you are kind of budgeting what you want to pay. But yeah, I think used car prices are, because that's all going to push up used car stuff. Obviously, if everything's new is 25% more expensive, you're going to see 25% higher prices for used stuff for the most part as well. So yeah, unfortunately, nothing's getting cheaper in my opinion in the next 4 years here. Again, love to be wrong, and we will see what happens. But Sean, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, hey, Matt, long question / comment coming in the comments if you have the time. Absolutely. So he says, I know you're not into F1, but Cadillac officially has a team now. I'm hoping to see it lead to innovation in their civilian performance lineup, especially since F1 cars use hybrid powertrains now. Anything in particular you would like to see? Maybe the return of XLR. I think XLR, I don't know what they're waiting for that. That's an easy money printer. And especially now that they've kind of got their footing with C8 and they've kind of caught up with demand for C8s, I think, for the most part, this seems like prime time to say, okay, well, let's slap on another 20 grand on the price, do a Cadillac version and, just rake it in. That would be a smart move, I think. I think they could do Cadillac versions of a whole lot more GM stuff than they're doing already. Pickup truck, for example, stuff like that. But as far as the F1 connection, I think with XLR, it'd be cool to have some kind of crazy Halo thing, and that may come. I think whenever Cadillac was like talking about like V performance and stuff, I think someone asked them about is there any potential for a Halo thing? And I think their answer to that question was that V is enough of a halo. The Blackwings are enough of a halo. And I can't argue with that. CT5V Blackwing is a far better halo than many companies ever have or would ever dream to have. So I think they feel comfortable with that. But, the thing with the F1 technology is, they're starting to develop it now. And you look at like Mercedes F1, how long did it take from that, all that stuff that, Mercedes has been doing before it ended up in like the new motor, the 2-liter turbo that has the electric turbo on it. That is an F1 derived thing. And there's probably a few other little things, we see with the exotics, like the AMG 1 and all that. But as far as regular stuff, like, the SL and all these other models have that electric turbo from F1. But that took how many years of them putting that in the F1 car before it finally came in, for the production stuff. It's going to be a little bit of time. And then, Cadillac's kind of, in this catch-22, because then if we're talking this technology coming into cars, maybe around 2030, then again, we'll see what happens in the world, but I would assume we're going to a pretty heavy electric portfolio at that point. And sure, you could still have a Halo car that you sell 1,000 of. That's not going to screw up any kind of emissions fleet averages if that's still a thing or becomes a thing again, after 2028. But, that's just the only unknown there, is do they bother with anything gas powered that late in the game? But I think they, since Cadillac loves that stuff, they have obviously very good mechanical engineers that are into that stuff. I could see it someday, but it doesn't seem like Cadillac has the pressure to. The timing might not be right. And, we'll just have to see what actually applies and, how it applies. But, we could even see some stuff that maybe carries over to the electric cars, possibly, whether it's like a CARES, style system, something like that. I don't know. But, yeah. So, since I'm not familiar with enough F1 tech, I don't know what all could carry over, but it'd be cool to see that for sure. But XLR could be as easy as just a C8 with Cadillac badges, a little bit more luxurious. Call it a day, and that would sell a ton. So we'll see though. I'd love to see it though come back. And I'm so mad. I almost was gonna review an XLR because this new dealer network that I'm working with, they had one on their one used lot, and this was a couple of weeks ago. And I have a gap this week. I'm actually gonna go out and start filming some used cars again, maybe some new ones that I'll never get as press cars. But they had an XLR, and I'm like, oh man, hopefully that thing still sits there so that I can review it here in a couple of weeks. And I checked, and it is no longer available. It's gone. So I was this close to reviewing an XLR. It would have been such a cool review. But maybe someday I'll trip over another one and finally get to review one at some point. It's gonna be a fun car. There's actually one around here that I see every once in a while, and it's always puts a big smile on my face seeing an XLR. But let me see. Kyle, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate that. Happy to see a bunch of people able to get those memberships. And thanks again, Kyle, for your support every week. It really means a lot. And let me see here. Where were we? So Marco says, what's up, man? How's everything going? Been a while since I checked on the live. Thanks for stopping by, Marco. He says, what's going on with the Nissan Honda partnership? Last I heard was that Nissan pulled out last second or something like that. Yeah, so I did a bunch of videos kind of covering it every week as it was unfolding. The latest is that it's off. They didn't want to do it. But Honda said they would come back to the negotiating table if Nissan CEO stepped down, which happened this past week. We have a new CEO now. So now the possibility is open. The new CEO hasn't said anything about that yet. But it's now potentially on the table again. But the biggest problem was that, at least rumored, none of this is really confirmed, but supposedly Honda told Nissan that Nissan needed to adopt the Honda hybrid system and quit doing their e-Force hybrid thing that we're just going to be starting to see here, I think, next year in the Rogue, and actual it's a very similar system to Honda's, where the gas engine is just a generator to power electric motors. That's what Honda system is. And so it was like, well, this is too much overlap. So Honda just didn't want Nissan to have another redundant system. And apparently that was a deal breaker for the old Nissan CEO. We'll see about the new one. But I think there's a few other little issues that, were impossible to overcome. But so we'll see. It might still be on the table. Who knows? But that's the latest there. But thanks so much for stopping by, Marco. And also, Running Wild with Mocky Buck, thank you for another super chat. He says, I wish Ram did show a difference between the gear shifter and the volume knob. I accidentally switched gears while driving down the road. Yeah, whenever I have Ram press vehicles, I occasionally have to be like, oh, wait, I must do the wrong one. It isn't a good placement. Yeah, I agree with you there. I thought they went to column mounted for a couple more models, I thought. Is 2025 Ram column mounted? I think for the 1500s, I could be wrong. I know the 2500s are, but I thought 1500 did switch. I can't remember now, but yeah, I think they're slowly figuring out that was a bad idea, but I can't remember if they've actually changed that yet or not. But maybe someone else that knows can comment about that. But yeah, I agree with you. It would be good to have some clear differentiation there. And thanks again for the super chat. And let me see. So I'm getting a little behind here on the member questions. I'm going to get caught up on those. And anyone who has a non-member question, definitely feel free to ask it again here, in a little bit if I get caught up, and more than happy to answer more of those. But MD Can says, hey, Matt, hopefully your week went better than mine. Been a bad week for the end. Failed inspection for front pads, not tires. Then I blew a tire today going out to Harrisburg. Oh, that sucks. Sorry to hear. Yeah, surprising about the pads. I don't know how many miles you have, but that seems kind of premature on any Kona end. But I mean, maybe if you've been driving it hard or something, having a lot of fun with it. But yeah, sorry to hear that. At least this is an opportunity to maybe upgrade brake pads. You can go to some slightly more aggressive street pads. I wouldn't go to a track pad because then you get squeaky brakes. But can always be a fun little way to up your braking power a little bit if you feel like it. But because I know I had on my Legacy GT, I had Hawk HPS pads. I don't know if they're still any good or not, but this is 15 years ago. But they were pretty good, nice and quiet, and gave me a little bit of extra bite there. And Nicholas says, hey everyone, had a great track day at Willow Springs yesterday. That's awesome. Well, hope you had a good time. I've never driven Willow Springs. I'd love to someday, but hope you had a blast. That's awesome. And thanks for stopping by. MD Can says, that was a whole crap show. Had to get 2 cheap all seasons to get me home because the tire was unsalvageable. Now I actually got to order PS4S. Yeah, I've always been nervous about that with like sporty vehicles, or even like with the Bullet. If I ever had a flat tire in that, I was always worried like, where am I going to find, a 275 wide PS4S, and if I'm in the middle of nowhere, it is kind of, not great. This is why spare tires are really nice to still have. I know more and more cars don't have them. And sometimes a fix a flat kit can get you home, but again, if you're out in the middle of nowhere or something, it's really nice to have that spare tire just to, limp you home, so you can, get a proper tire and you don't have to buy some stand in there, tires like you had to do. That's not great. So sorry to hear that. And man, well, hopefully next week is better for you. Keep our fingers crossed. And see, Decepticon said his spot was a red Lotus Emira. Very nice. Yeah, those are pretty rare around here, but I do see them occasionally. That's awesome. And Harsha says, "Is Mazda the only true enthusiast company? They seem to be completely focused on the niche enthusiast market." Um, I don't even know if I agree necessarily with that about Mazda. I mean, they do have, a sportier lean to a lot of their stuff, but then they refuse to do any actual full blown sport models. So it's Mazda is kind of like the like lukewarm kind of all the way through, like still some warmth there. It's not cold, but it's not hot. And then with, other companies like Toyota, you have, like some more colder, just regular stuff, and then you have like the spicy red hot stuff. And to me, that makes more sense because there's certain segments where it doesn't make sense to have everything be sporty. But then I've been just frustrated with Mazda that like everyone wants a Mazda Speed 3 and they won't do it. And it's because they're all obsessed with this like premium branding, which it seems like it is actually working for them, but also premium brands have performance arms. So there's no reason not to. I know in like Tokyo, they, hinted at this like spirit racing kind of thing that they're kind of doing. I don't know why Mazda Speed is a dirty word at Mazda now. It's bizarre. Like it's a great name. I don't know why they're abandoning that, and maybe they're going to have this other sporty thing. I don't know, but I just wish Mazda would just like go for it. They're doing all this other ballsy stuff. Like, why not just make a performance version of the Mazda 3? It's again another one of these things like GLI and Civic Si where you can really, print money with these things, if you do it well, and they're just not interested. I mean, they kind of did it with the turbos, but they don't have the tires, they don't have the suspension to really be considered true sporty vehicles. They're still pretty decent handlers, and obviously tires and suspension are pretty easy to upgrade, but it's just unfortunate that they're not willing to do a full-blown OEM sporty version of any of these vehicles. I think it'd be really a great integration. But yeah, I think Toyota to me is still the top enthusiast company just because of the sheer amount of stuff and the passion that they have for doing real, full-blown sports cars and stuff. And let me see. Jay, thank you so much. I saw it. And also, Jordan has a super chat. Thank you, Jordan, for another super chat. He says 2025 U.S. administration decline on EV advancements with the charging infrastructure. Ford C-Max hybrid, BMW i3, Chevy Volt, all ahead of their time. Definitely agree. They were all ahead of their time for sure. It's a shame all three of those still aren't in production because I think they'd all actually do really well right now, sales-wise. As far as charging infrastructure, it's a minor setback with the federal funding getting pulled. But one, they did a pretty good job of speeding a lot of that stuff up last year. So there were a lot more of those chargers put in the ground because they knew, especially once we got towards the end of the year, they were really trying to ramp that up as fast as possible because they knew the clock was ticking at that point. But the government stuff was a very minor amount of EV investment in the grand scheme of things. When you think about how Electrify America is doing their own thing, all these companies. And then you have all these car companies that are doing like Ionity, which is like the partnership with a bunch of like 7 or 8 car companies. And then there's another giant one. And then Mercedes has their own charging network that they're pledging a bunch of chargers. And you have Electrify America and EVgo. And all those know like there is still demand for this and they can make money off of it. And they're going to keep doing it because it's good business. So there's still going to be a nice advancement in charging infrastructure for sure. I'm not concerned about that at all. And I think it's still going to do its thing. I think, even if we get rid of all the incentives, we get rid of all the perks from a financial standpoint, you still have just batteries are advancing because they're advancing in other parts of the world. And we're going to get the benefits of that tech, improvement. So cost parity will come, before the end of this decade with gas, and then you have the charging infrastructure getting better. These things, it's unstoppable. As much as they want to stop it, they can't. And so it makes too much sense. This is why, China went fully into the EVs and they're killing it with them. And yeah, I think this is why again, once the batteries get a little bit better and once the cost comes down a little bit, you're going to see a lot more people. And I mean, I was even seeing people. I was reading a very interesting Facebook thread about a Tesla thing or something in their whole dumpster fire of a situation right now. And how there was people being like, well, now Model 3s are cheap, and people that don't have an issue with the ownership of Tesla, they're like, well, now I can finally afford a Tesla. I'm going to go out and get myself one. And you even have some adopters there that are unlikely people. And who knows, with the Trump auto show at the front of the White House this week, that'll drive EV ownership, even though they're all bashing EVs 2 months ago. Now we got, all these other senators and stuff promoting Tesla there. So, I mean, it's also that's going to improve, the adoption rate and all that as well, even though they're fighting against it in other ways. But anyway, I won't get into the weeds on that. But, I think that charging infrastructure is going to be fine. And thank you, Jordan, for the super chat. And Jay, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, never realized now that I work at a manufacturer I support in Honda, the amount of fuel pump recalls is crazy. Still don't love. Also purchased TE37s for $2,800 instead of $4,100 in a great brand new deal. That's awesome. Well, congrats on the new wheels. And yeah, fuel pump recalls. I mean, I think a lot of people don't realize the sheer number of recalls in general. They always kind of fly under the radar unless it's a catastrophic, crazy one where cars are catching fire or this or that, but there's a lot of these kinds of recalls. And this is also, it shows people's selective memory, because people pick on EVs for the fires, but then there's like so many recalls. I've seen Hyundai had a recall for like park your car outside because your car could spontaneously combust. Our Mercedes C300 that Beth had, her 2019, that had a recall where they were like a fuel line could come undone, and if the car has just been running and that happens, it could set fire, park outside. And we had to park her C300 outside for, I don't know, a couple of weeks until we were able to get to the dealer for that. And that gas car could have spontaneously combusted. And no one remembers this stuff because everyone's just like, oh, it's only an EV problem. It's like, no, cars have had fuel issues that cause them to just burn down in the middle of a parking lot all the time. This is very common, actually, relatively speaking. Still tiny percentages of cars that it actually ever have those issues. But yeah, recalls are very, very common. I mean, it's a weekly occurrence, and it's usually large numbers of cars, and it's a routine thing. You bring it in for a recall. And a lot of times it's even just software updates, all those things. But yeah, fuel pumps fail. I mean, all kinds of stuff fails. Obviously, we saw the fiasco with the airbags. I mean, there's a ton of stuff. But I mean, that's the good thing about recalls is you're able to, fix that and make sure that these cars are safe after the fact, and it's important. But yeah, it's wild. And thanks for sharing, Jay. And thank you for the super chat. And Jordan, thank you for another super chat. He says, where does Tesla get their minerals for vehicles? I have to look. Most of theirs, I think, come from China. I know they use Panasonic batteries, and I think Panasonic sources their stuff, a lot of those chemicals, from China still. So I believe there is some of that. I think they also are getting some from other places. I'm not an expert on that, and that's something I got to look up. But yeah, that's a problem for a lot of car companies. This is why, like, there's a new lithium mine, I think in Arkansas, that just started happening last year. And there's a bunch of big money going into that. And, obviously they're desperate to, get minerals elsewhere in the world to, not be reliant on China for that stuff. But I think it's still a large amount of that does come from there still, even for Tesla. And let me see here. Other questions. Where were we here? Dylan says, hello, cool spot of the week was a Mark II Golf. Got to talk to the owner briefly. His dad bought it new back in the day. That's awesome. I love stories like that. Those are my favorite stories when a car has stayed in the family and, has this cool provenance to it. That's awesome. Very cool. You got to see that and talk to him. MD Kansas, my mom's birthday was today. So yeah, like we were talking earlier, the very popular birthday week. Well, happy birthday to your mom. I hope she's had a great one. And let me see. Dorian's asking about the cat. It has not appeared. Yeah, the cats don't make an entrance here without Beth. Typically, they follow her like her shadow. So no cats without Beth. Hopefully, Beth will make an appearance here sometime soon too. And let me see. Chad says, do you think that all the modified trucks are pointless? Or that all modified trucks are pointless? I don't think modified stuff is completely the owner's taste. Everyone has different taste, and I never judge anyone for modifying their vehicles. Obviously, a lot of mods I wouldn't do myself. But that's the joy of car ownership, is customizing it, making it an extension of your personality or what you want to portray to the world and what you want to put out there for everyone. I think a car is a very unique, it's kind of like your clothes, it's a way of presenting yourself to the world in a lot of ways. And I think it doesn't matter what I think about modified stuff. It only matters the person that does their own vehicle. That's it. But I mean, myself, I don't do mods on my own cars anymore. There are leases and, and all that. And the Bullet was, in my opinion, basically perfect, which is why I didn't feel a need to modify that either, because I bought a car that I already loved and not a car that was like, oh, I have to fix this or it's a work in progress. So for me, it was just like that needed no customization. But, there are some cars that if I did own it, I'd probably want to, tweak things and change things up on many of them. Like if I had a GR Corolla, I'd definitely put an exhaust on it because it's too quiet from the factory, stuff like that. So I'm not against any mods, and I would still do them on the right car. But it's not really up to me, honestly. And Michelle says, when did you last drive the Fiat? I last drove it 2 days ago, I think. Yeah, 2 days ago. And actually, this past week and next week here, I won't have a press vehicle. I have a 2-week gap, which is how I'm able to actually have the next. So this week, I'm going to have, there's the 2 press cars I'll be posting the reviews of. But the following 2 weeks will be cars that I'm able to go out and either find. I'm not actually totally sure what I'm going to film yet. I'm still working on kind of hatching up a plan. I might have one that I already got my eye on, but I'm going to be able to go out to car dealers and pick most likely used stuff or new stuff that I'm not able to usually get, on the press fleets, base models or off, oddball kind of stuff. And so, but I'm able to drive the Fiat like it's my regular daily driver here for the next 2 weeks. So that's going to be fun. And I love that little thing. It really puts a smile on my face. It's so fun. And still very happy with that. And Luke says, I like the Ford shifter. I call it a hockey puck shifter. That's fun. Yeah, it is really a good shifter. Raphael says, with sales of the Camry, Corolla, and Civic, how can people still say there's no market for sedans? There still definitely is, for sure. And you look at, some of the top sellers still are sedans. But, when you look at the migration patterns, to me, I could be wrong here, but from my gathering of the sales data and stuff, excuse me, it seems like you have sedan loyalists that continue to stick with sedans. And I think this past year with, the way prices have just gotten expensive and, especially with the high insurance rates of the past year, we saw more and more people kind of going into the cheap stuff, the Jettas, the Mirages, the Versas, those all had phenomenal years. And that has boosted the sedan take rate for this past year. So we are starting to see a slight increase in market share for sedans. But I wonder how long lived that is. Maybe there is, a potential for an upswing here that actually is sustained and actually will continue to grow. Maybe if other companies joined in, with their own offerings, that could help that for sure. But, I think that obviously there still are a lot of people, millions of people, I'd say, that still buy sedans every year. But, it's just, whenever F-150 sells almost 1 million units on its own, that's what I'm talking about. Is it's just there's way more, almost 500,000 RAV4s in 2024, plus the 1 million F-150s. And between those two, we're talking those two cars alone, I believe more than every sedan combined. I could be wrong on that, but I think so. That's just kind of the disproportionate share that I'm talking about there. So there is a market, a large market, but just when we're talking about gigantic numbers, that's where the numbers just kind of look a little small in comparison. But Luke says Sentra's only 139 horsepower. Okay, thank you, Luke, for the correction from earlier. Yeah, you're right. It is. Yeah, I thought, was there a 150 horsepower version, or am I just imagining that? I don't know. But thank you for the info, Luke. And let me see. Wheatman, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships as well. I really appreciate all the generosity tonight from everyone. Happy to see everyone able to grab those here. And hopefully some people that maybe have been asking questions here that aren't members yet, hopefully some of them got a gifted membership here so they can join in. But I will, again, just make sure you keep asking your questions every so often. Hopefully I can catch up on those here towards the end. But I'll try and continue to be concise as I can here. And Jordan, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, after Elon's government involvement, Tesla stocks declined. Will Rivian succeed, especially with a truly affordable EV? I think Rivian has a huge opportunity right now. I think Lucid does as well. I mean, the amount of people I'm sure that are migrating from Model S to Lucid Air right now, huge amount of people, I'm sure. And I know Lucid also, I've been kind of keeping my eye on EV leases recently and the deals on them because it's kind of fun. I kind of got into that when I was shopping for the Fiat. But man, you can lease. I don't know if it's still in effect, but I saw this like a week ago. You can lease a Lucid Air, like the pure, like the base rear-wheel drive one. It's like $550 a month or something. And I think part of that is because you can do like a Tesla Conquest. They give you like another, I don't know how many thousands of dollars extra they're dropping the price if you're coming out of a Tesla. But like a lot of these companies, there's a few other companies too that are doing this right. I think Acura and a few others where they know everyone's like, get me out of this Tesla. And a lot of these people probably are a little bit upside down or, they're not able to easily get out of it. But, you throw a little bit of extra money in the pot and say, okay, well, you have a Tesla, so we'll give you a Conquest, boost of a few grand or something. That helps a lot of those people make that jump. And I think that car companies are playing that pretty well. I think they could probably play it even better and really capitalize like crazy and like super focus on the pissed off former Tesla fans and get a ton of them to migrate. But I mean, Lucid Air I think is going to be a huge beneficiary of that, especially. But I think Rivian as well. A lot of people that especially maybe coming out of Model X, go to the Rivians. The problem is that Rivian doesn't really have anything to compete with Model Y right now. And R2, I believe, is coming towards the end of this year. Maybe that's not till 2026. I'm not sure. But if R2 was right now, I mean, they would be, Rivian would be, to the moon, because R2 they'd just sell everyone they could make. So I don't know. I think that's not till next year. I mean, another one, I think a lot of these companies, Scout is going to have a huge, presence. And I think Scout, the people at Volkswagen that approved all that stuff for Scout, like building it in South Carolina, and having it be very American clearly is going to pay off in spades because that is going to be one huge new factory that's going to be coming online. It sounds like Volkswagen might actually kind of take back some of that production capacity. I mean, they're still going to build Scouts there, but it sounds like they may try and relocate some other stuff to squeeze into that plant the best they can, because of the tariffs and stuff if that goes through. But Scout is going to be set. I mean, and then them being smart about doing the range extender one. Scout's going to really, I think, do phenomenally well. And it's in a very cool car. Again, I got this, get hands-on with it back in the fall. Really sweet, for the truck and the SUV. And I think, absolutely. Rivian, Lucid, Scout, once they come online, they're all going to do very, very well, I think, with this exodus, as well as the other legacy companies. I mean, a lot of people I see going from Model 3 into Ioniq 6, and I know Hyundai's actually doing on Ioniq 6 a Tesla targeting like Conquest, booster, where it's a couple grand, I think they give you if you're coming out of a Model 3. And I mean, a lot of people, that's a very natural, it's a very similar size with Ioniq 6 and very, competitive, I think. And so thankfully, this is the thing. Tesla used to have this exclusivity and have this, monopoly almost on EVs. And now, a lot of these people are like, oh, wait, like there are a lot of really good options And now I don't have to feel like I am stuck in a Tesla if I want something futuristic. There's all these other really cool options. And in many cases, they're better. Actually, I can speak from personal experience. A acquaintance that we know actually got rid of their Model Y just 2 weeks ago for this exact reason. Got an Acura ZDX. They're very happy with it, and they're like, "Wow, it's so nice to have CarPlay." I'm like, "Thank you, validation." But they love the ZDX. Like, it's not perfect, but they're like, "Wow, like." Almost like what was I missing kind of mentality. I mean, I think like there's some things they miss about their Model Y as well, and I didn't like do an exhaustive interview with them. It's just stuff I heard through the grapevine from my wife who talked with them. But it's just kind of, I think that a lot of people are going to realize like, everyone's caught up really well. Everyone has worked really hard in the past 5 years to catch up to Tesla, and in a lot of cases they have, or in many cases they've actually surpassed and are faster charging and are more range and more accurate range estimates, and again CarPlay and all these other things, and doing really good stuff. So yeah, I think it's going to be a huge opportunity, and we'll see how that turns out for Tesla. But I know there's really smart people also working at Tesla, and I think for the benefit of the company, Elon should just absolve all ownership and all leadership, and turn it over to somebody else if he actually cares about the Tesla company itself. Like, I think removing himself from it, at least for the time being, would be the best thing for the company. But we'll see what they end up doing. But let me see here. Get back to other questions. Let me see. Where were we? I'm gonna drink here. Let me see. Okay, so Michelle says, anything on a new gen Mazda 3 yet, or will they stick to the current one for a while, like CX-5? Yeah, I think it's going to be a little while. I haven't heard anything. I know CX-5 is probably coming next. Mazda 3 could be after that, but yeah, I don't think they're in a big hurry, honestly, even though they should be, because it's just getting less and less competitive with the back seat being so small. But yeah, I think it's going to be a little while, unfortunately. Sean says, I remember when the Spec R Sentra was around, and that wasn't even that much faster. It just handled better. Right. But I mean, honestly, I'd even take that these days as far as, spicing up some Nissans. But Marco says, I'm looking at buying a car cash after I buy my home using the VA loan, and I've really been looking at a Lexus SE430. Only issue is winter here is definitely real, and I need something all-wheel drive, and budget is 10 grand. I don't know how bad winter is where you are, but I will say that snow tires have come a long way and are very, very good. Obviously, you still have some limitations. I wouldn't make a habit out of starting on steep hills in a rear-wheel drive car with snow tires, but for most stuff, it's manageable. And if you live, in an area where you're not in the mountains, or you're not in some area where no one ever cleans up the roads, most road crews do a pretty good job cleaning stuff up. At least around here, I don't know. Like, there's very few times, even this past year, where I was driving on snow. Certainly slushy kind of stuff, or a little bit slick, but like nothing where it's like, man, I need to have some gigantic amount of ground clearance and some crazy setup. We got around just fine with our Mach-E on all seasons. And honestly, I think even all-wheel drive's overkill in many cases. I mean, I have the Fiat that's front-wheel drive, all season little, range max tires with no grip basically, and I'm not worried. I think it's manageable if you want the SC430 that badly. And anecdotal, I don't know again where you live, but I actually have a neighbor that has an SC430. I don't think he takes it out in the wintertime, but that's the other option, is if you want the SC430, get that, and then get a winter beater, and then enjoy the SC430 the other however many months out of the year you have nice weather. That could be a thing too. I'm a strong proponent of live in the moment. If you want a car and it's something you can reasonably obtain and afford, try and get it, because you only live once, and enjoy it. So that would be my argument. Get the SC430, figure out the winter with tires, beater, whatever you got to do. Don't let, a few bad months soil the rest of the year for you with something. I mean, there's other, fun things, all-wheel drive, 10 grand, you can go for WRX, the usual kind of fun all-wheel drive stuff like that if you want. But I think it'd be far cooler to have the SC430 and have a miserable beater for for $500 or something over the winter time or something. I don't know. But anyway, hopefully it helps you a little bit. Let me know if you have any more questions or if you want any more help brainstorming other all-wheel drive 10 grand stuff. It's not a segment I shop super frequently, so I'm probably not too much help there. But yeah, I mean, WRX is always the logical thing. It's just finding a nice WRX for 10 grand. That hasn't been beaten to hell and back is going to be hard. But excuse me, if you search around enough, you might be able to find something. And Shrine Car Guy says Mitsubishi could do the same with Rally Art. I have seen a Rally Art Outlander. Yeah, they did like a sticker package. You're right. And so Nissan could totally do that. That would be a good idea. Let me see. I see also Dan says, yo, Matt, we're about to be a Fiat Brothers, kind of picking up a 124 Prima Edizione Lusso tomorrow. Number 120 out of 124 in the USA with 7,000 miles. That's awesome. I actually saw 124 this past week and such a cool car. I love those little things. I love the Miata motor more. So that's the other thing that held me up from liking the 124 better. Perfect car for me is 124 with the ND2 Miata motor. That would be like perfection in my mind. But I mean, it's fun with the turbo, and especially if you want to mod or you want to play around with the boost. I mean, that could obviously has way more potential than the Miata motor does. But that's awesome. I didn't know they had a super rare version like that. That's really cool. And congrats on the new car tomorrow. That's always fun. And it's good to see someone else taking the Fiat leap with me. Let me see. So Harsha says, U.S. safety laws are kind of a joke. Pop-up headlights are banned, yet vehicle size is not a national discussion. Pop-up headlights are not as dangerous as a big vehicle. I agree. Totally agree. Yeah, don't get me started on that. I know there's so many dumb laws and so many misguided things. Yeah, I mean the trying to ban K cars in a lot of these states has been like the stupidest fight. Like, why do you care if people bring in K cars? Like, if people want to do that to themselves, I think K trucks and K cars are awesome, but they were saying like, oh, this isn't safe. And neither is an Ariel Atom, which you can drive around on the roads. Neither is, any of these other tiny little vehicles that would also get, steamrolled by every F-150 around. But and look at all the people driving Model Ts and driving, all these classic cars that'll impale you the second you rear end someone at 20 miles an hour. All these things that yes, probably aren't the safest, but it's there's all these exemptions. Look at all the cars with hood ornaments on them. I mean, hood ornaments, it's like you're literally driving around with a what's the word called, the javelin on the front. It's like you're sparring, driving something like that down the road as far as pedestrian safety goes, and no one's saying to get rid of hood ornaments on classic cars or anything. I mean, so there's a whole bunch of stuff where it's very hypocritical and picky, choosy kind of stupid stuff. But yeah, I think the large vehicle thing is a huge issue. And actually I saw a reel or actually it was a YouTube short that was this funny skit about how this thing I was talking about earlier with large vehicles and that being a problem. And they were saying how if we even just banned the top 10% of personal, not commercial, just personal sized vehicles. We're talking probably the super huge stuff like Hummer EV, things like that. If we were just to ban the top 10% of most heavy, biggest vehicles, that alone would reduce fatalities by 13%, which is a huge movement. That's a lot of lives saved, just to get rid of Hummer EV and whatever gigantic other, F450s or whatever it is that's out there, and I was even just talking to my friend about this the other day. I was like, I really feel like if these Cybertrucks and these Hummer EVs and even, these F350s and stuff, I feel like you should have a CDL. If you don't know how to manage that kind of weight, it can get dangerous real fast. And again, no one's making any squawks about that. No one cares. Then you have people rolling around in 9,000 pound trucks that, just got them for their 16th birthday. And it's like, how is this a good idea? Why is this legal? But it is. Individualism in America. That's why, because can't tell anyone what to do, because freedom. Anyway, Sean says, I'm not expecting innovation to be fast. They're going to be using Ferrari motors for the first year or two. Gotcha. I didn't even know that. So yeah, I'm out of the loop there. But yeah, that's interesting about Cadillac. That's a fun partnership. I didn't know that. That'd be cool to see. And Luke says, sorry, not car related, but is it just me or do you have to switch phone plans every few years like insurance to keep a good price? Honestly, I've actually had AT&T, not sponsored obviously, but I've had AT&T since the original iPhone because they were the exclusive carrier for the iPhone here in America in 2007, and I had the first iPhone, and I've been AT&T ever since. I actually tried to switch to T-Mobile 2 years ago, and it was such a gigantic headache. And I actually got like halfway through, like I even generated a phone number and everything, and then they like screwed up and dropped the ball, and it was this massive thing. I was like, you know what, skip it. I called AT&T. I was like, look, I'm mid switch with T-Mobile. Like, what can you do to help me out here? And they're like, okay, so we can give you like this loyalty. And they started like pulling all this money out of nowhere. So if you're annoyed about your phone price, call up customer service, be like, I want to switch. What can you do to keep me? And there was a few things like, they were like, well, do you work for any of these companies that get discounts and all that stuff? And like, I signed up for AARP, which is like a senior citizen thing, but apparently anyone can sign up for it. I signed up for that, and a yearly membership of that is, I don't know what it is, like $30 or something a year. And it saves me like, I think $10 or $15 a month on my phone plan. And like, so that clearly makes sense to do that kind of stuff. So there's like all these little things you can do to like game your phone bill a little bit just to get a little lower. And so I went through that whole thing a couple of years ago just to get my bill down because I was like, yeah, this is kind of getting a little too expensive. And so there are some things you can do. Best of luck if you do have to switch. But yeah, it's always such a gigantic pain that I don't even want to be bothered with it. But I've like my one friend actually just switched from T-Mobile to Verizon, and for them it was fine. So sometimes it's just luck of the draw, I guess, with how that goes. But yeah, best of luck to you, Luke, on that. And MD Can says 41,000 miles on his Kona N, 2 and 3 in the front, 9s in the back. Definitely don't baby it. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you don't baby it, but I guess 41,000 miles of hard driving, that would be about time to do brakes. So that makes sense. But sorry, it caught you by surprise there. And he says, that's one thing I wish my Kona N had. It didn't have any of that spare or fix a flat with him getting stranded there. Man, that's rough. Yeah, I know like with the Bullets, there was a company that sold a spare tire that fits over the Brembos. Because like with the Mustangs, you can get a spare tire on the regular Mustangs, but whenever you go up to the Brembo brake, Ford claims you can't fit a spare tire in the wheel well there or in the spare tire well. So anything with Brembos, you'd have no option for a spare tire in the Mustang. But there was a company that made a spare that's, fully rated, like legit, I don't know, 50 mile per hour spare tire or whatever, that does clear. They, did a rim design that clears the Brembos. And that was a very popular, group buy thing on the forums and stuff. A lot of people buying those, and it's stashed perfectly in there. But, that's honestly, like, even if you do a lot of road trips, I don't know how often you do that MD-Can, but if you do, even just stashing a spare, find a spare wheel, someone's doing a part out or something like that, just find one. I don't know if it's a square setup on Kona N or not, but find a backup one. And if you do a lot of driving, I actually consider this with the Bullet of just having like a spare wheel. But the problem is the Bullet, it's staggered, so it'd be kind of tricky. But if you do a ton of road trips, I recommend having one or two spare tires in the trunk there if you can spare it, spare the space, because nothing can beat having a spare, as far as safety and convenience there. And let me see. FC saying thanks for the membership. Glad you got one there, and welcome to the club, FC. And let me know if you want to get into the Discord server. You can send me a message, and I can send you the link for that. And I hope you enjoy all the perks. And Dorian says if Mazda took away like 1 cubic feet of trunk space and put an independent suspension on their Turbo 3, that'd be sweet. Yeah, there's so many things they could do with Turbo 3. Easy things to make it more sporty. And let me see. Happy to see 757 Tech was able to get their membership renewed there as well, thanks to Kyle's generosity. And Let me see. Dorian says Mazda interiors are really classy. I love them. I know, I love them too. Definitely some of the nicest ones still in the segment. And 757 Tech says, I'm renting a Mazda CX-5 currently. Mad respect to their steering and engine reliability. This one is naturally aspirated. Nice. Yeah, I love CX-5s, and it's a great used value. They depreciate pretty quickly, which isn't great from a new buying standpoint. But man, I mean, if you want a good, solid, compact crossover, Mazda CX-5 has always been my go-to pick. And a bunch of my neighbors have them. My sister has a CX-5. Everyone's very happy with them for the most part. And yeah, really, really good vehicles there. And let me see. I see Patricia also says, congrats on the 500e. I love it, and it seems like a great car for you. Thank you, Patricia. Yeah, it really is. I really do enjoy it, and yeah, just happy to have it. And Dragon Car Guy says, not too long ago, I had recall work done on my nearly 22-year-old Lancer. Yeah, it is very common. That stuff still keeps on happening. And Dorian says, overcharge mod 500e. Yeah, I do like an overboost thing. I don't know. I guess anything's possible, but I don't know if there's anyone that actually offers anything like that. But it's a lease, so I definitely have no availability to do anything that would void the warranty or screw anything up. So I mean, it's not a fast car. It would be nice to get more power out of it, but it's a really fun little run around. And I also, I guess some little ownership follow-up things after the initial video. It's kind of reignited my love for driving a slow car fast. I enjoyed that with the BRZ. Obviously, the BRZ was a much better handler, but the ability to like floor that little Fiat and be like, "Woo, this is fun," but I'm also not like a menace to society doing 1,000,000 miles an hour, and also doing it silently, and flying under the radar. But just being able to floor a car, and doing that, and it's just kind of fun. And that combined with, I was tossing around some corners here on Friday night, and it actually handles really well. It's a fun little car. Yeah. Obviously, I wish I was able to have some sweet sports car, and hopefully someday I get back into something, a little punchier. But to make lemonade out of lemons, Fiat is just, I'm so happy I was able to get something fun. I could have gone for something that was a little more expensive and pragmatically better, like an Ioniq 5 or something like that. But to me, the Fiat's it's just fun. And to me, that's always what I've wanted in my own personal car ownership. It's just fun. And it does it in a different way, but it's fun for me. Dorian says, put a 4-inch exhaust can on the 500. That'd be funny. I guess people wouldn't be that confused. Most people would probably just think it's still gas, because I think the 500e is still like a new concept to most people, even people that are familiar with Fiats. I was leaving a parking lot on Friday night, and someone with a red smart car. I never see smart cars around here, but hilariously, they parked across the lane from me there, and I was backing out as they were getting out of their smart car, and they were like kind of doing a up and down kind of look and checking it out, and I'm sure they just again appreciate tiny micro red cars, and so that was kind of a funny little like thing. I never thought I'd come across a red smart car while I was in mine, but that was kind of funny. And let me see. Sorry, I missed a couple other super chats here. And yeah, Jordan didn't even let me know about your other one here. I thank you for the super chat. It says Google/Apple Play takes away from radio. So Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, it's you can still do all the usual infotainment stuff like normal. It's just adding in the smartphone capabilities, which is great. And also, Jordan, thank you for another super chat. He says, is hybrid the holy grail for the auto industry? Right now, I think so. I think that is a very comfortable leap for a lot of people. And this is why, again, Toyota's killing it. All the Hondas that are hybrid are, selling like crazy. I think hybrid is absolutely, the way to go right now. Because especially, people do want better fuel economy. Even if we have no emissions regulations anymore, people, still would like to fill up less, and they'd like to spend less money on gas. And so with these hybrids, especially like the Toyotas only being like $1,000 upcharge, a lot of people say, sure, what does that add to my monthly payment every month, to go for the hybrid? It's a very minor upcharge. And, so I think a lot of people, they're like, yeah, like I'd love to get 40 mpg. And so, I think that's really the smart move that Toyota and Honda and others are making here. And Tier Blood, thank you so much for the very generous super chat. It says, "Sup, Matt? Just want to show my support. Keep grinding, my guy." I appreciate that so much, and also happy to see you got a membership here this past week too. And hope you enjoy it. Again, let me know if you also want to get into the Discord server. Send me a message. I'll send you the link to that. And anything else, there as far as membership goes. If you have any questions or any recommendations or suggestions, always happy to take any of those feedback things, and let me know if you have any follow-up questions as well. But thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it, and hope you're having a good night here as well. And let me see, where were we here? So we're getting caught up, I think. So I'll probably be able to do some non-member questions here soon. But truck and car guys is not to mention huge SUVs like Suburbans and Expeditions. Yeah, as far as the pedestrian safety and just car safety in general there, yeah. And Harsha says, if sedans don't sell in big numbers, I can see companies going the Volkswagen route. Volkswagen only offers the Golf and GTI in R form. Honda and Toyota and others could discontinue the regular version and only make the sporty ones there. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think with a lot of the other ones like the Civic and the Corolla, they're so huge that they don't have any worries. I mean, I could see maybe hatch for those vehicles going performance only someday or something like that. But I think they're doing really well. I think Volkswagen, I don't know why people weren't buying Golfs as much as they were excited to buy Civic hatches and buy the Corolla hatch even. I don't know, because Golf used to be a staple around here, and then they just, I don't know if it just got too expensive or too fancy or what the deal was, but it's a shame that Golf, they can't justify it here anymore. And Dylan said the last gen Sentra had a Nismo with 188 horsepower. So it was more. I thought it was just like such a mild bump that it wasn't like, I just remember, I've never driven the Sentra Nismo from the last gen, but I just remember, I know it was paired up to a CVT if I remember correctly. I could be wrong, but I thought it was CVT only. I just remember people just not being very hyped about it, and myself also just kind of being like, man, they couldn't have done more than that. But I'd love to try one of those someday. I also want to try a Juke Nismo. I haven't ever driven any of those, but it seems like they kind of have a fun little cult following as well. And Cara says, what is your favorite manual transmission that you've ever driven? And what's your favorite automatic transmission? I'd say favorite automatic has got to be, I mean, I don't have a ton of experience with Porsche PDK, but it's probably been the best one, from an all-rounder standpoint. And ZF 8-speed is hands down the best. I think most people will agree that's the best torque converter automatic in the business. Like, nobody really comes close still. I mean, there's some that are pretty good, but that's easily the best one, I think. And the only other automatic that I will say is very, very impressive is all the, dual clutches you have and all the sports, the supercars, hypercars, stuff like that. Like whenever I did the track, the Corsa Pilota is what they call it, the Ferrari driving school last year in the 296. Which, unless you follow me on Instagram, you have no clue I did that, because I only did it on Instagram because it was a whole thing, but that was only posted on Instagram. But 296 GTB, phenomenal automatic, also super smooth at low speeds. But I mean, man, the way those shifts fire off, and not only the speed of the shifts, but the aggressiveness of those shifts, especially in the sportier modes. I think PDK does this a little bit as well. Again, I don't have a ton of experience, especially in like the higher performing PDK stuff from Porsche, but man, that Ferrari, I mean, it really bangs into your back for each upshift and it gives you all the right excitement. And I wish I could have done a review on that 296, because man, what a car. So amazing. So, a lot of those upper echelon stuff are very well done, as they should be, obviously. But as far as regular stuff, CF8 speed's the way to go. As far as favorite manual I've ever driven. I don't know. I mean, I probably say Civic Type R is probably, and by extension, Integra Type S is probably the best. I'm trying to think of any others, like older stuff. I mean, there's a lot of really great manuals for sure. you know, but as far as my apps, I've never actually sat down and thought about like what is the best manual I've ever driven. That's a very good question. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, okay, well, also now I'm thinking a little bit more here. I think the Tremex are very, very good typically. I mean, the Tremec and the GT350 is phenomenal, and Blackwings, either CT4 or CT5, really, really good at. I would actually, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna recant my Honda answer. I think probably actually CT4V Blackwing. I think it's the best manual I've ever driven. Partially because the seating position too, like the shifter is like it falls to hand so naturally. It's such a comfortable shifting position as well. And you really kind of the shift knob is perfectly done. The weighting is so well done. It has the auto rev matching and all that stuff if you want it to make it easy. But the feel is phenomenal. And I don't know, I don't think there's a ton of difference between the manual and the 4 and the 5, but I feel like I prefer the way it feels slightly in the 4. I think it's because it's a little bit of a smaller car, and I think I'm sitting a little bit lower in the 4 versus the 5. But it's probably a tie, honestly. But the 4 and the 5, and I think if you go back and watch my week with the CT4V Blackwing, I probably talk a little bit more about this. But I don't know if I made that claim in that video, but I do recall like saying in the video it's like a really phenomenal manual. I think I'm comfortable with that as my final answer of best manual I've ever driven, probably. It's so, so good. I've never driven a gated manual. I'd love to do an actual gated clinkety clink manual. But I've never done that. So that'd be another cool one to try. That might take the cake. But for now, I'd say it's the Blackwings. Great question. Thanks so much for asking. And Austin says, sorry I'm late if we discussed tariffs. I don't know how late your comment is there, but you might have come in right after the tariff discussion or right during it. I don't know, but briefly discussed it, but we'll try and keep our cool here until April 2nd, and then we will see what actually happens and what doesn't. But thanks for stopping by, Austin. And Wheatman says, Matt, what's your thoughts on the 2026 Genesis electrified G80 and GV70? The dash will be upgraded with the new 27-inch OLED display. Yeah, I mean, they seem really nice. I've never driven either of them. I refused the both of them as far as press cars goes, because no one watches my Genesis reviews, and EVs are an uphill battle. You combine those two, it would get no views, unfortunately. I'm personally very interested. And honestly, the electrified GV70 is one, if we decide to go for a used EV next year for Beth's replacement car, a used electrified GV70 is kind of, in my mind, one of the top runners because it's gorgeous styling still. I adore the styling of GV70. Beth loves it as well. And she also is kind of, missing the luxury branding, and they're actually pretty cheap. I've seen some as low as like mid to low 30s on the used market already. Again, next year, who knows what anything's going to cost next year, but in current pricing, like that's an enticing option on the used market. New, they're too expensive. I have seen some lease deals recently for them. Man, I don't know if you guys ever follow Lease Hacker, that forum. That's been like my new addiction, is like checking out the crazy deals people sign on Lease Hacker. It's phenomenal. Some of these things, like amazing lease deals. Someone, I think a week or two ago, leased the electrified G80. It was like $350 a month or something for like a car that's like 86 grand or something like that. And so if you can get a good lease deal, absolutely, they seem phenomenal. I mean, you have the same great eGMP platform, so you have super fast charging, super comfortable, amazing vehicles. I love G80 and GV70, for the gas versions, and making them electric. Yeah, I think honestly just makes them probably better in most cases. And I think they're great. From what I know about them, I don't know if I'll ever drive them because again, it's just going to be a complete waste of time here as far as content, unfortunately. But I really like it. And maybe if we do end up picking up an electrified GV70 for a personal car, then I'll do a review on it then, because why not? But yeah, I really like them personally. And Trent Car Guy says it's pretty bad when a new vehicle makes my wagon look like a Miata by comparison. Yeah, I know. And that's anything that's even 10 years old looks tiny compared to the way, these cars have bloated recently. And Luke says, I just switched to AT&T. Hopefully this is the last switch I have to do for a while. Yeah, I mean, in my experience with them, they don't play the kind of games that T-Mobile plays. Again, everyone has different experiences, so this is just mine. But AT&T has been fairly boring to the fact where I don't really think about AT&T very often, which I think is a good thing. It's, again, I think the pricing is decent. They never give me any crap. The service isn't amazing. It's fine most places. I do like that, like T-Mobile has the international for free versus on AT&T. Anytime I go overseas, I gotta pay, I think it's like $10 a day to use my data plan and stuff. But I mean, you're spending, it's still not that much of a big deal, so it's not huge. But yeah, so AT&T's treated me pretty well. Hope it treats you well too, and glad at least the switch is over for you. And Harsha says, why isn't making a subcompact crossover? These cars are selling very well, but after the EcoSport got discontinued, they haven't gone back into the segment. As far as Ford, I guess. So Ford sells the Puma in Europe, and that is like a very good seller for them. Or is it called? Yeah, the Puma, I believe, is the subcompact thing. Yeah, and it's, I mean, I can't remember. I think in the UK it was like one of the top 5 selling cars, I think, over there. It kind of has taken the place of Fiesta in a way, because it's like kind of the same thing, but has an extra 2 inches of ground clearance or whatever. And, so they do have that. And that is at least sticking around. So it's not all bad news for Ford overseas. But I wish we'd get that here in the States. I think Puma, even though EcoSport did poorly here in the States, I think Puma has a better chance of doing better. And, I think that also, the one other thing I'll say about the tariff thing, we will see how it plays out as far as what can be imported and what can't be, and how that all shakes out at the end of the day. But I think if stuff gets more expensive, you could see a resurgence in more used or more cheaper, cars that are, at, these prices that people, instead of having people go to the used market, have people buy more of the Versas and the Mirages. And I mean, the Mirage is ending production. They did that at the exact wrong time, in my opinion. Because if we're going into another recession, that's the stuff that boomed during those time periods, But I mean, so Versa, all those types of things, I think, could convince, if, a lot of companies right now, if I was an executive and I saw how Versa had a killer year last year, Mirage sold like crazy, the base Jettas sold like crazy, that's got to make you think, okay, what do we have here that we can tap in to meet that demand? Ford has Maverick, but that even went up in price here this year. And it's just like, I think that there is going to be a higher demand for cheaper cars, especially, again, we will see how everything goes. But with some of the stuff that's being talked about politically, I think there could be some people that have a few less bucks to spend in the future, and they're going to need cheaper cars. And so if I was an executive right now, I'd be scrambling as many of those subcompacts as you can. And if you have those, keep them, even if they're old, like Hyundai Venue, for example, 5 years old now or whatever, don't touch it. Like, literally just keep building them. Doesn't matter if it's not competitive. Doesn't matter if it's only 110 horsepower, whatever. Just keep it in production. Like, I truly think these things are going to be, just be huge hits here the next couple of years, potentially. We'll, again, see what happens. But, yeah, I love small cars, obviously, just getting the Fiat 500e. So I'd love to see that come back for sure. And let me see here. I see Just Ray says, where's Beth? She'll make an appearance again someday here, but she's just always busy doing other stuff here in the evenings, getting caught up, getting ready for the week and all that. But hopefully she'll be able to make an appearance here again soon. And let me see here. Dorian says, any car that relies on CarPlay, the radio sucks. My 2019 Mazda MX-5 RF had a really cool radio, many features. Also, HD radio was pretty slim and great at handling formats. Gotcha. Well, yeah, I mean, some of the vehicles, I think everything these days, though, has a screen. So it's like, why not have the smartphone integration if you have it? I agree. If you're talking about an older, Miatas, though, that you still had a screen there. So you had CarPlay in your 2019 Miata, but to me, like, there's a lot of companies that still do really good infotainment and have CarPlay. And this is, I actually just had someone comment on my Rivian review today that was like, the only reason why companies offer CarPlay is because they can't figure out infotainment on their own. And it's like, that's not it at all. At least in my mind, like, my appeal with CarPlay is that I can do voice texting. I can use all my apps. I can, listen to my music, which I'm a weirdo that listens to Apple Music. Like I buy songs on the iTunes store, like it's 2007, and own my music because I like owning stuff and collecting stuff and not just streaming whatever the Spotify station's playing that day or whatever. I know I'm like the last man on earth that's doing that, so I'm not trying to pretend like what I'm doing is normal. But for me, like I can do Bluetooth audio streaming, but the quality's not as good as Bluetooth, and there's other things there. But a lot of these cars I review have very good infotainment systems that it's not like CarPlay is a crutch. It's that it's just so that I can stay in contact with people outside of a phone call, and I can use my podcast app, and I can use all these other things. That's really the Waze. I mean, Waze, I don't know about you guys, but I love the cop alerts on Waze. Your infotainment system can't do that. Also, Rivians can't do that, no matter how amazing their infotainment is. Same with Tesla. None of them warn you about cops. Waze warns you about cops. And that's, for an enthusiast, you would think like that'd be a universal, like, yes, like Waze is all supreme for us. But a lot of people they don't see it that way. So, or some people are just happy to stick their phone to the windshield and pretend like they're driving something from 2010, and that's fine too, I guess. But just for me, I don't know, I'm a big CarPlay fan still, and Android Auto. But I mean, also at least with Chevy, they're at least offering to download apps, like you can run Waze on the Chevys, even with the ones that don't have CarPlay. Rivian doesn't even offer that, so that's why I don't know, these Rivian owners, they've found workarounds or whatever, but to me, it's still just like excuses whenever it doesn't hurt to offer it, in my opinion. But regardless, moving on here. Let me see. We got a couple more super chats. Jordan, thank you for another super chat. He says, autonomous driving, autocorrect, hello, Alexa, is negatively contributing to actual human/environmental interactions. I mean, I guess you could argue that for sure. I think things like the automation, though, like I don't think you're really interacting with humans or environments really for a lot of the stuff, honestly. So I think like autocorrect is a nice saver for a lot of people. It's amazing though the amount of people on YouTube that don't use autocorrect, because man, the amount of typos and no punctuation and all kinds of bizarre stuff I see people typing in comments. It's not as common of a usage as you'd think, at least from my experience. But a lot of that stuff, yeah, I mean, I think autonomous driving is great because it removes the people who don't want to drive anyway. Get them in the right-hand lane, let them stare at their phones, and they're safer doing that with an actual computer paying attention than them half-assing it themselves and then being a danger to everyone else on the road. So I'm all for autonomous driving as long as it's only a choice and not a requirement. I'm all for autocorrect, and I'm all for Alexa if it helps you stay on top of your day. That kind of stuff I have no issue with personally. But B. Mitchell, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, my 2 cents worth on a 2021 Chevy Sonic. I'm considering one, or 2 cents worth on for question you're asking. Gotcha. I'm considering one with a 5-speed manual, 75,000 miles. That's dirt cheap, less than $600 due to salvage title, just as a cheap beater to keep the miles off the newer Fords. That sounds fun with a manual. Obviously, it's going to be not super punchy and all that, but I just obviously, you've been around enough classics and stuff to know how to inspect a car and make sure that your frame isn't screwed up and, covered up with cheap, body work or, whatever the case is. I obviously do your due diligence to make sure it's a safe vehicle. It's not going to screw you. Other than that, though, I think they're great. The only thing, I had a friend who used to have a Sonic, and I think it was around 75,000 miles. I believe it was the alternator that went. There was something that went, and he had to swap it, and it was also like a horrible placement for whatever it was he had to do. I can't remember if he had to maybe take off the intake to get to the alternator. It was something. I know you're pretty handy, V. Mitchell, so probably not an issue for you. But I know that my buddy was like, he could not fit his hands in easily to he had to do some kind of weird extension to get to something and work on it. I wish I could remember. If you want to follow up, send me an email. I can text him and ask him the details if you're wanting more info, if you haven't uncovered this stuff yourself as far as the problem areas with those cars. but it treated them well, I think, for the time they had it otherwise. I don't think there was any other issues with it. Again, if you'd like me to ask him, I'm happy to. As one of my good friends, I can ask him the rundown of what he remembers from his Sonic ownership from a few years ago. But and he also didn't have a 2021. Theirs was like a 2015 or something like that, I think. But yeah, sounds like a good deal. If it's a 2021 with for under $600, I mean, I don't know about you, but at least around here, you can get $500 for a car for scrap. So if it's basically scrap price, you can't go wrong, right? If it's a horrible investment, you take it to the scrap yard and make your money back. And if it works out, then it works out, so probably pretty low risk there. So I guess for that reason alone, probably worth it. Yeah, they seem cool. I've never driven one myself. I've ridden passenger in my friends a long time ago, and it was fine. I actually kind of thought the motorcycle inspired gauge cluster they had on at least the one that they had was kind of a cool touch. But yeah, that's about all I can probably say about that. Hopefully helps you a little bit. Again, let me know definitely in an email if you would like all the extra info from my buddy there on that. I can definitely pass that along from him and ask him about that. But thank you so much for the super chat, and best of luck if you do go for it. And let me see here. Where were we? So Trunk Car Guy says people laugh at my beater Lancer with how it looks, but there is something to having a low horsepower car and just that spirited driving. I like to say that it's Ford or Miata. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Yeah, in regards to the Fiat comment earlier. Yeah, it is fun. I think. Obviously, it doesn't light your hair on fire, but just something to you kind of beat on a little bit. It's fun. And Harsha says manual EVs do make sense as they are technically already available. A lot of e-bikes have manual gear, so it's not a foreign concept. Excuse me. Yeah, and there's also some companies that have done this, in concept form. Like the Ford Lithium, I think is what they called the Mustang Lithium concept. They showed at SEMA, which had a regular like Mustang manual transmission, and it was an EV powered Mustang. And yeah, there's nothing stopping them necessarily. I mean, packaging would be a little bit problematic, and I think that's kind of, that's even why we don't have a manual in the C8 Corvette, is they said that spine going through the vehicle, there's no way to run a transmission tunnel into that car because of that spine and the way it's all kind of packaged. So, but I think especially if we're talking about some of these EVs that are kind of these dual powertrain things, like the Charger, for example, where you kind of have a transmission tunnel still there because you have, gas and electric versions. Anything that has a gas and electric version could have that, I think, a little bit easier. And they could do it. It's just that, it doesn't seem like there's much efficiency to be gained by that. Because I think if there was and they would offer it, you see like Mercedes and Porsche doing 2-speed transmissions in their EVs. And that's basically just like one for city and one for highway, and they have deemed that to be enough. I mean, Mercedes and Porsche are no strangers to over complexity and over engineering stuff. If it gives them an extra tenth of a second or an extra tiny bit of efficiency or whatever, and they're not going for it, and so that tells me if they're not going for it, either the tech isn't there or there's just no justification for it. So obviously the fun component could be a justification, and maybe someone will finally do that someday, as far as enthusiast vehicles. But as far as, I think it probably wouldn't be beneficial. Maybe it'd even be kind of weird to drive. I don't know, because I've obviously never driven that, but I think that would be kind of, interesting thing to try. I feel like there's a reason why no one's done more than 2 gears yet in a EV, but I could be wrong. We'll have to see how the technology evolves over the next couple of decades and what ends up happening with that. But it's a fun idea for sure. And Dylan says, speaking of transmissions, I say this as a physically disabled person. OEM should always have an automatic option. Call it cripple shift for all I care. I just want to drive a Focus RS or a Type R. I can understand that, and I obviously completely agree with you. And I've said this, in the past I was so happy to see this with GR Corolla, for example, like, what does it hurt? And this is why I've been kind of annoyed with Civic Si never offering it. And yeah, you're right. Type R, Focus RS, all these types of things. Like, especially whenever you have the pieces there, like, how hard is it to upgrade the 10-speed? I mean, it already hooks up to the Acura turbo V6 engine. So what's stopping it from, hooking it up to the Type R, similar kind of power levels, less power actually. Why not do that? Because obviously physically disabled people is one, component of it, but also people who, even just have, worn out knee or just have, back issue that prevents them from being able to, shift gears or, I mean, just the giant amount of people that commute in bad traffic. It never hurts to offer that option. And obviously, yes, there's some R&D work involved in that, but there's, I always think about things as far as business cases goes, and adding an automatic to a car that's manual only is an easy business case. Easy, you're going to make that money back even if you have to develop an automatic transmission from scratch or something. Like, it makes sense. And we saw Hyundai do this actually with, Veloster N launched with manual, and then we saw the DCT a couple of years later, and they spread that DCT out to other vehicles. And unfortunately, it's had some issues in some of the non-performance applications, but like, it made sense to add that, and now you're seeing it pay off dividends in a Elantra N, for example. And so I guess that's at least the good news, for you, Dylan, and hopefully for others, is that there are some options. We just got, again, GR Corolla, we have a Elantra N, and honestly, like, I love Type R, I love Focus RS. I'd rather have GR Corolla, even with the automatic. It's a really good automatic. It's almost one of the closest ones to ZF8 speed. I'm thankfully going to finally be getting a GR Corolla automatic for a week here at some point this spring, because I can spend some more time with it and see, what it's like, and really do some more testing of that automatic. But, I honestly, I'd rather have Elantra N and GR Corolla are my two favorite sport compacts, hands down, right now. And they both offer a really good automatic option for both of them. Like, no compromises, better, and honestly, in some ways, and are really good. So, I would, if you were shopping in that segment, Dylan, I'd honestly tell you to get an Elantra N or a GR Corolla anyway. So, I wouldn't worry too much about missing out on Focus RS Type R. Obviously, you should be able to enjoy those and try those yourself. But, I just, maybe a little bit of a consolation prize. I don't think you're missing out on too much. They're good cars for sure. Phenomenal cars. Just to me, not the best in their segment for what they do. Focus RS was very pioneering for its day, though, and it's another shame that didn't continue on. Austin says, I might be interested in a Puma ST if they brought it over. Yeah, they do have the ST version as well for the Puma over in the UK there. And it's, yeah, I do wish I could. I've never spoken to Jim Farley, but man, I'd have so many quick one-liners for him. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And just like, yeah, because I'm still very passionate about Ford. They make some great products, but they could just so easily do so much better. And again, more of that low-hanging fruit that drives me crazy sometimes. And Austin says, for anyone interested in a 2025 Mini Coupe, Mini is offering a special 25 grand trim called the Oxford Edition. Still fairly loaded and pretty compelling in my opinion. Yeah, and actually they did the Oxford special for the last gen as well. And my sister-in-law considered leasing one whenever that first came out. And it was really geared, like, I think college, if you were a recent college grad, they give you like even more money on the hood for that thing to really bring it down the price. It was one of the best lease deals around, at least as far as like nicer premium stuff goes, if I remember correctly. And yeah, really it was a solid deal. I don't know what the pricing is now for that, but I'm going to have the new Cooper S here. It's the 4-door version, but I'm going to have it in the middle of April, and I'm excited. It's my first Mini press car, and starting off with the Cooper S is great in my opinion. So I'm excited to try the new Mini because I have not even sat in one yet. So I'm excited to check that out and try those out. Let me see here. Sorry, I missed the super chat here, Jordan. Thank you for another super chat. He says, is it a good thing that Ford and GM aren't historically linked to the Trump administration? Both keep pushing EV and hybrid vehicles. Well, I mean, I don't really think any car company other than Tesla is linked, to the administration. Obviously, Ford's been very vocal about the dangers of the tariffs, and GM's playing it quiet because I think, again, a lot of these companies are just scared to speak out. But I think there's, I don't know. I think everyone's in the same boat, honestly, right now. As far as these car companies goes, they're all to one extent or another, screwed. Some less than others, but it's going to be higher prices for everybody, regardless, because there's not a single car that is made with 100% American content in America. There's nothing exists that does that. So, that's the problem. So I think that everyone's just kind of in this together. It might actually bring the car industry together in some ways. Companies that maybe were at each other's throats, if it all comes down to this mass extinction kind of event and this consolidation, we might see some very interesting alliances here, even if they're just temporary ones, just to get through the next few years. We'll have to see, but could be some interesting times. I think the Nissan thing is the tip of the iceberg here with with Honda. We might see a lot more of that here as the year and years go on. And Trenton Car Guy says, don't feel bad. I still have actual CDs that I use since my cars are too old to have smartphone integration from the factory. I'm aware I could retrofit a newer Raid with integration. Yeah. But yeah, CDs are great. I guess maybe this is me getting old or something, but like CD quality is still like top-notch audio quality. What is it now? How old is the CD? Probably 40 years old at this point. And it's still like, FLAC files, I guess, if you have like an SD card or a, USB stick or something, that beats CD quality, I think. But other than that, like nothing else really beats. I think maybe Tidal does if you stream through that and you have an excellent data connection. But yeah, CDs are so good still. I totally agree with you. And I miss the days of burning my own mixes and, doing all that stuff. It's, I do love CDs still. And, it's probably something I'll start collecting more in the future, because right now I haven't bought a CD in a long time, but it's probably something I should do soon. And let me see. Harsha says, do you think e-fuel and an EV can join together and create a hybrid system similar to gasoline and EVs in the current market? Since e-fuel is going to be so expensive, an EV could offer a better daily commute, while e-fuels can offer a traditional experience with gasoline and electric pack. I think kind of what you're talking about is basically it's a plug-in hybrid that runs e-fuels. The thing with e-fuels that's nice is you don't have to have any kind of special engine. E-fuels, you can put into a classic, you can put into a brand new hypercar, and it runs identically on the e-fuel there. So I think, again, if we continue to try to improve emissions and all that someday, if that, again, becomes a priority, then, yeah, that's kind of the way I envision things going is, you'll have the e-fuel exemption. And, if, again, things go the way California and others, in Europe and stuff want it to go, then that's eventually what we'll end up with is, in the 2040s and beyond, as far as what is only combustion engine stuff, it's only going to be e-fuel powered stuff, whether that's pure e-fuel or, again, for a lot of these, it'll probably make sense to do a plug-in hybrid component just because e-fuel might not be as plentiful as regular gas, because it is, again, going to be more expensive, and therefore a lot of gas stations will go out of business as demand lowers and it becomes more of a premium luxury thing to have, an internal combustion engine in the far distant future, potentially. I think that's where that, kind of kicks in of like, okay, well, I only burn the good stuff whenever I really want to. And otherwise I'm driving around on, really good electric range battery or whatever, and just kind of have the best of both worlds there. And let me see. Other non-member questions here, since we have caught up here for the last 10 minutes or so, or anyone else that has any other member questions too. But I see also Confirmation 07. Thank you so much for a very generous super chat. I appreciate that. He says, I own a 2022 WRX and I hate it. It looks like a crossover with the plastic cladding. The touchscreen is temperamental. Even with updates, it is dry and uninspiring to drive. Yes, I'm venting. Well, hopefully from the videos I've done on WRX, you probably know that I'm in your camp there. WRX has, some perks depending on what you're looking for. But I agree. I still don't love the styling, especially in the back. The touchscreen is terrible in my opinion. I think Subaru's touchscreen is one of the worst in the industry, and I'm glad it seems like they're getting rid of it. Recent spy shots for the new Outback show it running a Toyota infotainment system, believe it or not, which is a huge improvement and very good. I was not expecting them to partner on infotainment and completely give up, but it sounds like Subaru's giving up on infotainment. Maybe all the harsh comments finally got to them and they just decided to give up. I think it's going to be a good change, and I hope that they do that across everything in the lineup. So hopefully there's relief coming in the future. But yeah, I agree. It is not a good touchscreen. I've vented about this. I just vented about it, in the TS video a couple months ago. And the uninspiring to drive. Yeah, WRX, it can be fun in my opinion sometimes, but I agree. The rev hang is still kind of clunky. I mean, again, I vented about all this stuff in my various WRX videos in the past few years. It's it's for people who just want a manual all-wheel drive car. Really, at the end of the day, if you want the cheapest all-wheel drive manual thing with power and modability, because it takes well to mods, then I think that's kind of it. I have a friend that has 2022, or actually I think it's a 2023 that he has, and he's done a tune to it. He's happy with it. He's kind of, again, like, it's fine. It's not amazing, but it's fine, and it works for him for what he needs right now. But yeah, I mean, hopefully you can get into something. I don't know your background, but if you are coming from older WRXs and you enjoy that, what I've said in the past, I don't know if you've been here for all my other shout outs to the GR Corolla in the past, but GR Corolla is the proper STI successor. It has the rear diff that you can change on the fly. It has, the boosty nature of having to rev to higher RPMs will really get that turbo to kick in hard. It has the flickable, smaller, lightweight nature of the older WRXs. It's as the old little Super WRX fan flame flickers within me. That's the car that reignites that. No other car does it like GR Corolla for me. And it's, again, it goes back to that first love. And I think that that's it. So not sure how you feel about that car, or, again, what your background is or what you're looking to get into out of your WRX. But, if you're like me, GR Corolla is the antidote to your to your affliction right now. But if obviously there's lots of other really good stuff too. But yeah, I think that's kind of would be my recommendation to help you out there. But I'm sorry to hear you're stuck in it. And if it's something, at least the WRXs don't depreciate super fast. So hopefully, you have some equity or something, you can maybe jump. He said I should test drive one. And yeah, and the good thing is right now, GR Corollas, you should not have to pay a markup. If someone tries to slap a markup on you, go to another dealer, because that, and I think you can also, there's tons of used ones. So even if new Toyota dealers want to be weird, go test drive a used one, and they shouldn't care about that. And then get a good feel for GR Corolla. And again, yeah, if you're coming out of older WRXs or anything like that, GR Corolla is phenomenal. Again, some people hate it and they like to bash it because there was the iffiness with the warranty claims and all this other stuff. I think that stuff's overblown. I think the motor failures are overblown, like it is for any vehicle that people want to complain about that all the time. It's a very solid, over-engineered motor that's in rallying and all this other stuff. So I would happily own a GR Corolla if I could afford it. So I recommend it. But yeah, I think you should definitely check one out if you can. Thank you again for the super chat. And Jordan, thank you for a super chat as well. He says, Pontiac GTO or Dodge Prowler? I love the Prowlers. And GTO is really good too. I had a good friend in high school that had one. We had a lot of fun times cruising around in that thing. I think if I had to live with one, I'd rather live with the GTO. The Prowler obviously is a weekend car. But there's also just the problem with Prowler was the powertrain sucked. It always just kind of sucked. It's just a regular like minivan V6, regular slush box automatic. They dropped the ball on that. If that thing would have had a V8, it would have been an icon in the enthusiast world. And instead, I think they just genuinely couldn't fit one, at least to pass safety standards and stuff. They couldn't fit a V8 in. Otherwise, they probably would have done it. But so yeah, I think I'd rather have GTO out of the two. Thank you again for the super chat, Jordan. And let me see here. So I'm just gonna do the last few non-member questions here. See, Joe's asking, would you trade a 21 STI plus 5 to 10 grandish for a new GR? If it comes down to how much the 5 to 10 grand is, to you and how much you like the STI currently. If you are looking for something new and you can, spare the cash, yes, I would go for a GR Corolla. I'd also, yes, obviously, test drive a used one, see what you think about it. But yeah, I would rather have the GR Corolla. STI is great. My problem with STI is that you get terrible fuel economy and you have an engine that if you do anything to it modification wise, you're probably going to have issues reliability wise. You know, the EJ is just not a, it's just not a great motor. It sounds cool. It's legendary, but it's just legendary from a past era when getting, 18 mpg and a 4-cylinder was, I guess, a little bit acceptable. And a time when that was world beating horsepower, and these days it's not. And so STI is great, and also it's a smaller car with GR Corolla. Same thing goes for conformation. You'll have less backseat space, you'll have less trunk space versus the WRXs. That's one of the other things they do very well. They're very good family vehicles, lifestyle vehicles and all that. GR Corolla isn't as good with that. That is one concession you're going to have to make if you want to go to those. But the back seat is still usable. I drove when I had one for a week a couple of years ago. I drove people in the back. They weren't miserable. The trunk is small, but anyone that's used to sporty vehicles, you understand trunk restrictions. At least it's a hatch, so anytime you're not using the back seat, you have the full hatch space there at your disposal. So yeah, I honestly, I wish, I hope someday I can afford a GR Corolla, because I'd love to, once the Fiat lease is over here, I'd really like to get into a GR Corolla someday. Because it is a car that I truly love. Like, there's a lot of phenomenal cars and cars that I respect and cars that I'd love to own. But again, just that WRX thing in me, just really, really just, I really love the GR Corolla. So anyway, I won't keep drooling over that for much longer here. But let me see. Last couple of questions here. I see my confirmation's got some follow-up. He says, I owned a Subaru Baja and I missed the Rumble. I loved the older Subarus. Subaru's lost its quirky soul and became a mainstream automaker. Totally agree. 100%. You're absolutely right. They're an example of, I think, I have to cut them a little bit of a break because they do still have WRX and they do still have BRZ. BRZ, I think, is still the real big redeeming thing for them. If they didn't have BRZ, I'd really say they're just keeping WRX around just out of obligation. But BRZ shows me that at least, when those cars were engineered, they had a commitment to enthusiasts still, that they spent that money. Even if it was split with Toyota, they spent the money, But it sounds like, they're not going to do a new BRZ, and Toyota's going to go at it alone for the new GR 86, if the rumors are true. And so I think maybe Subaru's going to take the next leap into really kind of selling out even more and having only WRX. And then, again, some people could argue WRX is phoned in. They're not doing the STI like they should and all this other stuff that, we could see them even get more bland. And I think that's an example of a company that I again know a couple of people within Subaru that are higher up that I've talked to on media drives and stuff. They're very nice people. They are enthusiasts. The one guy even has a bullet. Just very cool enthusiast. One of the product planners, he's earlier before he climbed the ladder at Subaru was traveling all over the country in an STI. He was a regional, or he was one of the people that visited dealerships and made sure everything was good and answered questions and helped them out and stuff. And I think he told me he drove his STI up to Alaska, and he's driven it literally everywhere in the continental United States and even again to Alaska and stuff. Real enthusiast, cut his teeth on an STI, has been super into, but the money still isn't flowing for a new STI, and we still don't have, any of these other sporty things. Where's the XT version of Forester? Why not throw the turbo motor in these wilderness models that don't have it? It's in the Outback, but it's not in the Forester. Why don't we have a turbo Crosstrek? There's just so many easy things, easy, not even hard. You don't have to do any new engineering. Literally, you unbolt it out of this and you put it in. You're done. That's it. All the parts are there. It's as easy as it can get. Making a turbo Crosstrek is as easy as me going downstairs and making a sandwich. It's really that easy. I'm sure again, there's some reason why they're not doing it, but there's again those head scratching things where it's why not do this? So I agree with you. I mean, yeah, it's easy to set me off on this Subaru tangent here, but I'll rant with you all night here, confirmation. But yeah, if you miss the Rumble, obviously you're not going to get that back in anything else other than going to, an older WX or STI again. But if you can live without the Rumble, GR Corolla I think is as close as you can get. And I don't know, maybe someone makes unequal length headers for a GR Corolla you can put on. I don't know. But yeah, thanks again for the super chat confirmation. And Harsha says, why do you think Subaru could not make a reliable powertrain for so many years? I don't know. That's a really good question, honestly. I mean, EJs are reliable if you don't touch them. I don't know if they just didn't want to do the future proofing or the over engineering that like Toyota did with 2JZ and stuff like that. I'm not sure, why they didn't plan for that, especially as the years went on here. And obviously, they were cultivating an enthusiast base. Like, what do you think these people are going to do with it? Like, they're not all going to keep them stock. So yeah, it is another mystifying thing as far as why they never did that. I guess you could argue, devil's advocate here, that it hasn't stopped people from loving Subarus. I mean, sure, there's some people that get pissed off and finally, leave the brand. But look at all the people that still deal with all the stupid stuff that you have to deal with EJs, and they still put up with it because they just, again, love the sound, they love the powertrain, whatever it is. A lot of people put up with crap, and I think Subaru knows that. And I think that's also, Subaru right now, if you look at the sales data and you ask the accountants, they're doing great. They've made all the right decisions as far as profitability, as far as all the boring stuff goes. They're killing it. So if you're talking about company viability, look at, they're not Nissan. The Subaru's completely fine, and they are way smaller than Nissan. And now they're gonna be taking Nissan's lunch. And so I think that's, in some cases, they played it smart and they know what they're doing. But it just clearly is a choice of, they understand there's less enthusiasts than there are mainstream Subaru buyers, and they have deliberately chosen to alienate one group in a way, and just absorb the other instead. And so it's their company to do however they please with. And thankfully, again, I'm so thankful that we have Toyota taking up the mantle here of a fun manual all-wheel drive, hot hatch, and doing these cool cars, these sports cars, and again, doing a new GR86 most likely here, even without Subaru's help and, assistance with the financing and stuff. Like, Toyota's doing it, and Toyota's carrying that torch. And this is why I've converted to being, Toyota GR fan instead of Subaru fan, because it's, Toyota's putting their money where their mouth is and Subaru isn't. So support the people that are doing the stuff you love, so yeah. And let me see. I see we have crossed the 2-hour mark. So last couple of questions. CRC Truck and Car Guy says it could come down to simply to the fact of the Boxer motor, though them making the interiors bland and the infotainment a pain in the ass is totally on them. Right. Yeah, but the Boxer motor can be a little problematic, but Porsches typically are pretty reliable, with their Boxer motors. So I don't know if it has to be that way, but yeah, I don't know. That's a good question for sure. Emmanuel says, I think something happened with you and Ford. I don't remember the last time you reviewed the best-selling vehicle in the U.S. That's not on me. I've been asking for an F-150 for years, and Ford, the last time I did an F-150 was probably like 2018, 2019. That's not that actually, I have a running list of all the press cars I request every time I say, hey, I'm looking for some more press cars. Do you have any of these? Like, half the list is Ford's. Ford just does not send a lot of press vehicles to my region that services my area. And Ford also doesn't invite me to a lot of press drives. They invited me to GT500. I said nothing but good things about GT500 because I genuinely thought there was really nothing to fault. And then I never got another invite again until this past summer. They invited me to the Ford Expedition reveal. And I did that video. They were very nice. Great team of people. The event was very well run. That video actually did very well for me. And they actually invited me on the Expedition drive. I'm not going to say when it is yet. It's a ways off. But I will be driving the Expedition. I'm going on the media launch for that vehicle. So I am trying to work with Ford. It's just that they are, they're a little difficult to work with, and again, it's nothing. I don't have anything against them. I'm objective. Like, even if a company is a complete pain to work with, I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. Like, if the car is good, it's good. I mean, like, again, Ford, they don't give me a lot of press cars. They're kind of annoying to work with sometimes because again, they don't give me all the invites like everyone else does. But we have a Mach-E in the garage, and it's a great car. It's been fantastic for us, all things considered. And it, again, my car reviewer hat, I'm objective. It's a good car. I'm happy to say it's a good car. But yeah, I definitely want to do more Ford stuff, and I'm actually going to do more Ford stuff on my own. That's one of the things I'm planning here now that I have more dealer connections that I've made this year. Whenever I have gaps in press vehicles, I'm going to do more Fords because I'm tired of waiting for them to send me press vehicles, and they're vehicles that I think will get good views on the channel. I wanted to do the 2025 Maverick. There's no word on when that's coming in the press fleet, so I'm going to probably try, and that might be one of the cars I review here in the next week or two, is new Maverick, especially the Lobo version. I'm definitely want to get my hands on that as soon as possible. I'm excited. I will finally, I'm getting an Explorer ST here in a couple of weeks. And I'm excited to cover that, and gonna do a bunch of driving in that and test out the Blue Cruise and everything else. So I'm doing a few more, but I have nothing against Ford. Obviously I had the Bullet. They treated me very well with that whole process. They still make a lot of very good products. So I have nothing against Ford aside from, just my armchair product planning critiques. That's about it. Let me see. Confirmation says I was removed from the Christmas card list when I sold the Bullet. Maybe. Well, I mean, honestly, it's strange because like I sold the Bullet and then I started getting all the invites. So I don't know. But yeah, so I'll be doing more stuff with Ford here, and I hope to do more in the future too. Emmanuel says you can review my 2024 F-150. I appreciate that. I mean, again, now I do have a Ford dealership connection I just made here in the past couple of months. So I have a dealer now that has everything for me, so I'm able to easily get access to all that stuff. So I'm gonna make an effort to do more of that. Although strangely, the last F-150 I did, even back in 2018, didn't get a lot of views for me. I think it's just an oversaturated review space. Everyone has reviewed it already. So, it's one of those things, unless you are one of the first out there with a review on it, you're probably just kind of throwing your penny in the giant fountain of pennies and no one's going to ever find the video, So F-150, even though it's the top selling vehicle, doesn't guarantee it's going to be the top viewed vehicle or anything on the channel. So kind of, it's a little bit of a more complicated thing than that. But I definitely want to do, an F-150 here, because the last one I did was a Raptor R a few years back, and that was a lot of fun, but I want to do the regular ones too. All right. Harsha says, another thing about Subaru, they remind me of Taco Bell, different products using the same ingredients. Yep, Subaru's very good with part sharing in all the wrong ways. None of the fun part sharing, only the boring stuff. But anyway, we will leave it at that. But anyway, thank you all so much for hanging out here on a Sunday night with me. Hope you enjoyed the conversation tonight. And thanks so much, everyone, for the generosity with the super chats there and with the membership gifting. And stay tuned for some exciting reviews this week. Those of you that are members, especially the new members, definitely check out the community page here on the channel, where I do have member exclusive posts. I post up what reviews are coming each month and some other behind the scenes stuff every once in a while. Stay tuned for a very fun video tomorrow. If you were out of the loop, there's going to be a very, very exciting video tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. Probably later tomorrow, because it's going to be a lot of editing work, but it's going to be a fun one. So stay tuned for that, especially if you're someone who enjoys the enthusiast vehicles on the channel. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Have a great week, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks again, and take care.